Oh no, Sam Sedar! What a fucking nightmare! So Ethan debating Sam. Well, this is gonna be interesting to see. Obviously, he's probably talking about Israel Palestine. Sam Sedar, broadly speaking, is I would say probably the most prominent anti-Zionist Jew within broader media. I think you could probably say that. And Ethan's been on a sustained crash out for the past year and a half for, like, no reason. It being, like, fueled more and more by, like, DGG and stuff like that. It's only going to get worse, probably, if I were to take a bet. But, let's see the debate. Let's see what happened.
All right, give me a moment. I will set up the Zoom call here. We have Crowder ready. Stand by.
The biggest thing is that IDubbbz hasn't denied it. I feel like it'd be an easy thing to just.
I feel like it's real for sure.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show.
IDubbbz.
Oh my God, it's Sam Sedar.
Oh no, Sam Sedar! What a fucking nightmare!
How have you been, Sam, since we ruined Steven Crowder's life together? Nice to see you
I've
again.
been feeling very badly for him.
Yes,
over the years.
it's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is.
Poor
Hey,
Steven
are we
Crowder.
live now?
We are live on the H3 channel. Yes.
I wanted to start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and then I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that explains why I didn't hear back.
He may no. Yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly, I don't know what to do because like I want to get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people. But I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned and perpetuates basically like Nazi shit. So
yeah, this was yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out, and it was on me not to realize that I just assumed you didn't want to respond. But
okay, well that's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know like the whole
Guys,
background
it's
of
the
it.
crash out.
I don't. I mean, this is all I know
Sam
is that
Sedar.
Hasan reached out to me sometime. I mean, I
Hasan.
October 24th, and I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks. So I assume it was sometime in early October. And I thought we were just going to do this off air. But my understanding is that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this, and that's why he suggested that you speak to me. I don't speak for all Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak for only for myself as a.
Whoa, hold on, Sam Sedar. You're talking to one of the new Pope of the Jews. You know, like we know the fucking meme where like Ethan will speak out of like both sides of his mouth, constantly saying like, "Oh man, I really care about my sort of like ethnicity, like and religious background, and like one point in time in like a conversation about like Zionism, and then like out of the other side of his mouth he'll say like, actually no, like it doesn't matter at this point, like who the fuck cares, like Ethan's like fucking full of it, so whatever.
Any form.
Well, Sam, allow me to speak for all Jews if I may today.
Please.
No, actually, I mean that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hasan, which we can get into if you want. We don't have to talk about Hasan, but basically what I told him.
You literally were doing that in the conversation that you were having with Hasan when like this whole fucking shit was starting to pop off. Okay, bro.
I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews have some kind of positive feelings towards the state of Israel, and he was disagreeing with me. And I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that. And I don't know if you agree with that or not. I can pull it up, but 72% of diaspora Jews have some type of at least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong. And I said, "Who are you to talk about this?" I did not say that I only listen to Jewish people, which is a little bit of presumptuous and a little insane.
No, I don't think that's not what I took him to say. But yeah, I mean, as long as that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or somewhat.
Yeah.
Which is different than positive per se. So regardless, I mean, I think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean certainly my upbringing, my Hebrew education was I would say 1/3 Holocaust, and I'm older, and so this was in the 70s, 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, like Hebrew and Jewish culture, and I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I guess I think what the poll attempts to do is basically if you ask Hasan or a lot of people on the left, I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe it. So it's like if you think
I certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not, but it's not. I wouldn't describe it as positive.
This isn't the one.
Okay, I think I understand the sort of premise of the fucking question by like attachment to Israel, because I really do not like that question because it's super fucking ambiguous and open-ended. Like, what the fuck do you mean by attachment to like Israel or whatever the fuck? That can really like vary and sort of like mean anything. I really do not like that fucking question. I also hate it because Israel of the Old Testament isn't the one we have today. Yeah, exactly. It's a basis on like fucking religious grounds, on like something that's just like very, very fucking like different. Like the structure of the fucking nation state that broadly exists in like Israel or the whatever is totally different than from what we know and understand. So it's not like exactly accurate, I think, to say that, oh yeah, dude, it's all about like a connection that you maintain and hold with like a particular like nation state or like whatever of Israel, which I think is probably the thing that the ultra Orthodox Jews probably push back the most against. It's just like, well, no, in the Bible, the existence of Israel, there was an Israel within the Bible, but it's not the current construction of the nation state of Israel, which is a completely like sort of different distinction to what it was in the fucking Bible. So I do not like that question. I think that question is kind of dishonest, I'll be honest.
One is it, Dan? There's one that shows 73% of diaspora Jews. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Regardless, basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hasan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel, being a Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, etc., right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that. So basically, I would like to just take the opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because
Ethan is just an ideas kind of guy, guys.
So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters to me. So thank you, as the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Sedar, everybody. 100% Ashkenazi. You ever taken one of those?
I haven't, but I'm quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So a mix.
That's
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you. I think that's always a good thing. Hey, my friend, I'm 99.3%, so that's my.
All right,
that's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here by showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say I got about an hour.
Okay, great. I'll just get into it then.
An hour.
Not that it matters, but okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with a little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay, let's just enjoy. This
I love Tim Pool.
Tim Pool recently had a wedding. And can you see that?
Did he get married?
Well, I think he's attending a wedding.
Okay.
And he's very formally dressed, except he appears to be wearing a beanie.
I'm aware of his beanie attachment.
Yeah.
We love Tim
Fine
Pool.
love for our good friend Tim Pool there. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah. So
very good.
Well, let me ask you this: what have you kind of like heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have.
I gotta be honest with you. I have not heard much. I have like the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions on Blue Sky, I'm also on Blue Sky, is
Blue Guy.
this issue about talking to me, and I had presumed that was it. But I don't, look, from my perspective, I'm not, and I know that there's been, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you've taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this. And, the personal aspects of this, and, I don't believe that people, I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted or, try to be fired or whatever, or have CPS sick on them or any of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing. And
Sam's just an ideas kind of guy.
I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel-Gaza-Palestinian dispute situation for a long time. I lived in Israel for 5 years as well when I was with my wife early on. Here's my position right
my
after
wife.
October 7th, and you can tell me if you have any if you have any comments on any of my positions here. But this was from our episode a few days after October 7th.
Yeah, dispute. Yeah, it is
liars,
a genocide.
Weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel. Okay, listen. This isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal. Okay?
True.
He's made a coalition of the most radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis.
This is true.
And they're hell-bent on genocide, frankly, overtly. They've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza, including the killing of children, obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world. 50% of the residents are under 18, so when you bomb a building, the chances that you're killing children is pretty much 100%. Okay? It's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable.
True.
It's disgusting. I've seen videos, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead, 5-year-old daughter.
I mean, like, obviously, I don't think, like, Ethan's not wrong when he's saying all this stuff, right? This is, like, fine and all and everything, but the problem is, like, Ethan, like, the biggest issue here is that, like, you and your wife defended fucking Yoav Gallant, right? It's not just Netanyahu is the main problem. It's the entirety of the state apparatus and the ideology that they adhere to. Zionism is the root cause and root problem of all of this, right? Like, Yoav Gallant, literally at the earliest parts of the war, said that all aid, all food, all electricity, all water should be completely cut off, and Gaza should be put in a siege-like situation. Quite literally. Which is against the Geneva Convention. It is against international law to do that. Which is why the ICC has a warrant out for him. So, good thing Ethan cherry-picked on the talking points for Sam to give input on. Well, that was kind of inevitable to happen, but it's still early on to really tell, like, how potentially cherry-picked everything is, but he and his wife have given praise to Yoav Gallant. When people are broadly talking about Zionist and Zionism in, like, its relation to the state of Israel, it's everything as a broad sort of encapsulation, It's not just, you know, just Benjamin Netanyahu. It's not just like one guy out of like a bunch of guys. No, it's an entire sort of ideology and state apparatus. And well, Ethan, the problem is that you are helping uphold that through like your statements and comments saying like, well, actually, no, I don't think like people like Yoav Gallant. I like he's not that bad of a guy. He is that bad of a guy. Yoav Gallant is not good. He's a pretty bad fucking dude. Let's keep it a $150. That guy, he's a bad dude. Not a good dude. He's a bad one.
I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional. But I mean, so that was my take right after October 7th, and obviously that was coming off the end of me being like I'm an Israeli citizen. The morning of October 7th, me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that emotional shock, right, was this was my reaction. Now I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I mean, I think much of what you said was true. I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do in terms of Gaza is not broadly supported in Israel. I'm not seeing the body politic. I mean, I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary. And there was a question as to whether Israelis would see that this autocracy that Netanyahu was attempting to sort of impose on the country wasn't an extension of what was happening in places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion. And
oh, so yeah, we know like why Netanyahu is trying to keep himself in power, broadly speaking, right? He's trying to keep himself in power because, well, he has corruption charges on his docket currently. If the war cabinet, I'm trying to think what like disassembles itself, like if the war cabinet is not there anymore, his ass is going on trial, and he's probably gonna go to prison because he's an incredibly corrupt fucking leader. He is very, very corrupt, and people want him to, well, leave because of that. Part of it also because of just how he's handling the hostage situation as well. That also is a factor. But one of the big factors is, well, the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is just that Netanyahu himself is very, very corrupt.
And more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there. But I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence that a year and a half later, after you said those things, that this is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that.
Yeah, I pretty much like Sam Sedar is more or less on the money here. If you interview, and people have done this before, you interview like, I think it was like Abby Martin who's done like interviews of like average Israeli citizens, what they think the Palestinians, they think that they're barbaric animals that should be like, the exterminatus button should be called upon them and they should all get fucking killed. Broadly speaking, we have a pretty good idea as to what Israelis think of, well, the Palestinians. They're very racist to them.
They are as aware. I mean, I talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. So, I can't say if the Israeli population...
Yeah, and also, the state probably has a very tight control on information that goes out as well. That's also probably another thing.
A full understanding of what was happening in Gaza, that they wouldn't change their mind, but I don't see a lot of evidence of it.
So, as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started, and I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war is how much it's jaded and radicalized, I think, people in Israel. It's really, I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear, and obviously, like, that's...
What? Is there any evidence of that? Like, what does he mean by that? That, like... People just want Israel to poof go away? Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Right? This is very strange.
Much more nuanced conversation, but the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
And I think I think that gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. I was looking up we killed in Iraq, depending on what numbers you want to look at, but I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even like the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense and look, I experienced this with family members, where the sense that that the there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students, and I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or the Jews in this country, I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
well, I mean, people can care about two things at once. Why should people?
Absolutely.
Well, people,
absolutely.
People
I
who are
agree,
uninvolved in the war, if they're being like victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do. But
and you can care about
like,
two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things. And obviously, one is way worse, right? One is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse. And what's happening in
Who
Gaza?
should tolerate being discriminated against based on their identity? You know what I mean? Like, of course,
well,
who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid. There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up and playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of. I've experienced anti-Semitism, but put it in the context of like you're a parent, I'm a parent. If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them, and it's a question of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the.
Well, I'm going to stop you because I don't know who's doing that.
Well, I mean, I just said, like, you just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
There's two different separate conversations. There's like the American Jewry who's like, I have nothing to do with that place, and then the Israelis, right? So like, when you're talking
in
about
terms of the way that you characterized the Israeli feeling was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of like, we are committing, like you say, genocidal acts. And if people want to call it genocide, I don't, obviously it's got to be, it's a legal term, but I think that it's colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And to not recognize that as the fundamental issue, the first issue, I think is blinkered. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously. And
yeah, so far I think like Sam Sedar is more or less like hitting it on the head, saying like the idea that like a lot of like Israelis sort of have like this idea in their mind that they're like as persecuted as they are, but this like sort of idea that like they're just this wholeheartedly super highly persecuted minority that's like suffering and that like the world just like wants them wiped out. I think broadly speaking, most lefties, when they talk about that, they understand and acknowledge like that's not gonna happen. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know about like a bunch of other. I mean, there's always gonna be like the insane Marxist-Leninist types, and anything they do or say is like going to be pretty disagreeable to a lot of extents because again, like the Marxist-Leninists are very stupid, but that's a whole different fucking situation. The idea that like because Ethan's like kind of doing the thing where he's like trying to speak for like all Israelis, saying like all of them feel like they're just gonna get like wiped out or some shit, and that everyone like fucking hates them. And it's just like, do they all fucking feel that way? Like really? It's very strange because there's like been like how many fucking protests saying that they want the fucking ceasefire to happen or something within Tel Aviv itself. It's a little strange to me. Ethan does not agree. He's just saying that to appear sane. Ethan's like those Indian hunks who speak for all Hindus. Pretty much. Like, he's saying that he doesn't speak for all of them, but he is trying to speak for all of them. He's kind of speaking out of both sides of his mouth a little bit.
In Israel, people I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you, like obviously the people in Israel compared to like what's on October 7th, they were victims. After everything that's happened, obviously whatever they've suffered pales in comparison to the mass destruction and like wanton death of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too, lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem with Israel, just to try to explain what's happening there, because I do agree with you, is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally and like even the information that they're consuming, I think, that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening.
There are some. I mean, Haaretz,
we
what was it in the fall? You had the publisher of Haaretz, speaking out about what was going on there, and the paper was essentially, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down on to some extent. I mean, so.
Well, so what's your explanation why Israelis don't care?
That is true. Like Haaretz has been doing pretty good reporting on this stuff, generally speaking, saying like, actually, what's going on? Like a lot of people don't know, and it's pretty bad, guys. Like, we are not good. And a lot of people probably do not know about that stuff. And Haaretz isn't like, it's not like B'Tselem, right? Like, B'Tselem is like the main sort of like, the main like sort of human rights organization within Israel that does like very, very good like reporting on like a lot of the actions that the Israeli state is doing. But yeah, like that is, if there is an Israeli left, it would probably be B'Tselem. Haaretz is more like liberal Zionist types, generally speaking, and even they're saying like, guys, it's pretty bad. Like, it's not great, guys, and well, all the conservative freaks want to shut them down.
It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, I think, look, there's, I'm sure that there is a mass, sort of like a failure to deal with trauma. But I think some of it is, frankly, is racism. I think, how can you explain, how can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting USA, USA, to watching a video of people being, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their head I mean, I don't know how I can explain that. So I don't know how I can explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that reaction. But I know that it's wrong. And I think, some of it undoubtedly is.
This is a pretty good point here by Sam, right? Like, it's difficult to sort of like convey these like feelings and emotions to people, right? Like, because if it's not directly affecting you or anything, and if you just don't fucking know about it, why would you think about or care about it, right? Like, think about it for like 3 seconds. Like, there's always the sort of like biases, and obviously like a lot of people have been inundated with decades of propaganda against them. Well, I mean, this is certainly the case for the Palestinians, obviously, but like a lot of people just, they don't know, and they have no idea, and it's bad as a result, right? Like, we can broadly speaking, we can sort of acknowledge that is the case.
Is a racism. Some of it is, maybe some type of mass failure to deal with trauma. I mean, I don't know all those. I think, part of it, I think there's
there's no way of knowing that for certain.
Immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it, and I'm not in a position to sort of like be able to psychoanalyze it beyond the sort of vague notions.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I
from
agree,
my perspective, it's gobsmacking. And to me, it has shown, and I never identified myself as a Zionist as a kid or through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think I think it wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist. And I don't really care one way or another how I'm labeled. But to me, it shows a failure of that system of government that Israel has, and it has failed both from a perspective of what I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the 19th century. It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe, frankly. It seems to have been a massive failure. And so I can't operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees my religion being used as what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or Zionists are doing. And so I mean, that's a really good point there by Sam. Let's keep it a fucking $1.50 to be quite honest, right? Like, a lot of Zionists will very, very often, similar to evangelicals, which is why they probably work really well with the evangelicals, will very, very often use religion and these sort of ethnic disparities and cultural disparities of Jewishness as a sort of cudgel in order to justify a lot of their crimes, right? This happens all the fucking time. And if you're more westernized or anti-Zionist in general, the ultra-Orthodox Jews very often have very big problems with that. It's well, no, that's just not what the Torah says. This is just wrong. You people are just inaccurate. You're using this as a cudgel to justify heinous and horrible acts. I'm coming from with this, that I don't know if there is a psychological state that can justify this. In fact, I don't think there is. And so,
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because, I mean, it is what it is, right? It is the way that it is. And so that's for a reason. And it's just trying to explain it. That's all. I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
I think that'd be justifiable, yeah.
And
when we're talking about military and stuff, yeah, for sure. Israel can make their own bombs and shit. They don't need American military. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think they do need it to do what they're doing, without a doubt. And
well, what I mean is they're not entitled to it. I could say more accurately. So yeah, I think military aid should be cut for sure. And so,
as a Jew, and I mean, obviously you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as through your family and whatnot, and through having lived there. But as a Jew, I take such offense to what is being done ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. It is. I mean, I think it's. I think the conflation of Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And we can see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump to attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever. And so I don't know. And if you agree with that, great. If not, I'm happy to discuss it with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And part of the reason why this chasm started between me And Hassan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of becomes reality. For example, one of my criticisms of his not supporting Kamala Harris. Now, would she have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove? I don't know, but I know she would have been better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting like this insane Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels. I mean, that's and like he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu, you have a blank check, do whatever you want. Now, like
yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, that's a good point, Boy Meets Mini. I have no idea why Hasan is even getting a mention here. Like, Sam Sedar didn't bring up Hasan. Who cares about Hasan? Hasan is like a non-factor here. Like, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit about what Hasan currently thinks right now? Like, yeah, it's irrelevant, to be quite honest.
It just came out that Biden didn't, did nothing to. I mean, listen, I think.
Well, talking about Kamala.
I suspect that. I suspect that.
Well, the reason why, like, yeah, it's very interesting. Like, Ethan will never talk about the actions that Biden did. There's a reason why you should be mostly talking about the actions Biden did, because again, based off of what Biden was doing, a lot of Kamala Harris's messaging within the campaign was her saying that she would not change anything from what Biden was doing, which is why a lot of people were probably just like, oh, so the situation in Gaza is probably not really going to improve. Like, maybe it'll improve a little bit, but I don't really see much of a change that could potentially happen. And people were made quite wary of that, which is why a lot of people were just like, yeah, I don't know about Kamala, guys. This is one of the reasons why she ended up losing, because people, broadly speaking, thought like, oh, she's not really going to do much of anything about this, about the Israel-Palestine issue. She's not going to do shit. So, as a result, whoa, she suffered politically for that.
She would not have had the same policies as Trump. But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level. Like, it would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope her difference would have been, I think it would have probably had implications in the election. But I think perhaps even more importantly, it would have maybe implicated the behavior of Israel. So, I mean, look, I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils. But
yeah, me too. And I think that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah.
I can certainly understand how some people were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think,
I understand.
Sure. Yeah, does Ethan know about like the stuff that was just that, like, broadly speaking, not Kamala Harris justified, but that Biden fucking justified by constantly sending more and more arms and weapons and shipments to Israel? Like, does he know? Does he know? I have a feeling that he might not, to be quite honest. So, like, talking about and, like, bringing up Kamala Harris here is, like, fine and everything, because he's, like, saying, like, oh, yeah, Kamala Harris probably would have been, like, better. It's like, sure, maybe she would have been better, but the reason why we're in this situation to begin with, is because of Biden. Biden is the main factor here that is causing all these problems.
Why they didn't, I totally understand the perspective, like, I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala, but at the same time, like, a hugely influential political streamer like Hasan, who has a huge influence on people, I think, and who's someone who, who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be like, I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted for Jill Stein personally, but either way, he hasn't said it, and he wouldn't endorse her. Now, like, if you're just like a random protester or whatever, and like, you're like, I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine. But if you're like a high-level political streamer, and basically you have the capacity to weigh like the lesser of two evils and what that means, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to not make that call.
I mean, I certainly have been critical of.
I don't know if Hasan really did he. I don't remember like the clip that he might be referring to. Ethan, what he is saying there, spuriously out of context potentially, but like could be saying like, is what he's saying there like broadly true? I'd have to look at like the clip. I do believe that he said that you should not vote for Kamala Harris if you're in a safe Democratic district. And if you're in a swing district, if you're in a like a swing state or a swing district, you should vote for the Democrats. He's not like Mike from fucking PA. He might be like mixing up his fucking two dumb fuck like streamers or some shit. Like, I don't know if, or perhaps, because again, I don't know what the clip is. I don't remember what the fucking clip is. You also would have to say like, did Hasan say like, oh, did like, because like Mike from PA said that it's like even if you're in a swing state or swing district, you should not vote for Kamala Harris. But that's because Mike from PA is a clout sharking fucking moron and is a complete and utter charlatan and nothing from Mike from PA should ever be thought about or believed or taken seriously, because he's a moron. But that's neither here nor there. That's a completely sort of like different animal / beast. As for Hasan, it's a little different with him, right? Like, did he say, even if you're in a swing state or a swing district, to not vote for Kamala Harris? Do we know? Is this being brought up? Let's figure this out, actually. Hasan voting for Kamala. What did he say? Didn't Hasan mention he voted for Harris? We're gonna look that in right now. Well, this is a podcast episode. Mostly tired. Nothing here. There's any clip. That's someone who said that in his Discord. Well, this is from H3H3. And this is like people on Reddit on livestream fails saying he filled out his ballot voting for Kamala on stream. Okay. And then people also on that exact same thread saying from that stream, timestamp 105, hour 5 minutes and 7 seconds in. Did I forget the president? No, I did not forget the president. I voted for the president. I'm just not telling you who I voted for. I'm not going to influence your opinion in any direction unless it's to vote for Trump, vote par Trump, in which case I will tell you not to do it. Will you tell us after the election is over? Ha, maybe. And after the election, he said he voted for Kamala. LMFAO. Okay, so he did vote for Kamala during the election. Okay. He did it on stream, which we all know is not true. He filled out the ballot and he said who he was voting for in every race except the presidential one. Wait, the screenshots that this person posted immediately debunks that because he said after that he voted for Kamala. Now, could he be lying? Maybe. I feel like I'm going insane because I've not been able to find any evidence supporting their claim he voted for her. And they're so adamant about it, which interesting seem to have increased once they've been proven wrong about Harris and Trump being equally bad for Gaza. So, basically, as far as I can tell, he filled out his ballot on stream. He didn't fill out who he's going to vote for president, saying, I don't want to influence anyone in any particular direction. Which is why Ethan is saying, I think he voted for Jill Stein. Which... Has Hasan ever been positive about Jill Stein, like, ever, to be honest? Like, spurious claim at best, right? Is Hasan lying? Maybe. There's not enough evidence to really suggest that he could be lying or not. I don't think we really know. I'll be honest, I don't think we know. So, we'll just throw it up in the air. What's happened has happened. Like, who knows if he's voted for this, for Kamala or not? It's spurious at best, but okay, whatever. Stupid.
Of people who, generally don't vote for the lesser two evils, but I think, it certainly, in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly, that was my perspective. But again, what the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability to signal that there would be any change, I think sometimes you have to take this at face value. And I think there would be certainly, definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government like Trump is. But, I think probably this is the first election in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old, that I couldn't really condemn someone from taking that position based upon what we were seeing. I mean,
it's not just some random person. I do, and I'll tell you why. Kamala Harris wanted a ceasefire. She stated that. Trump said, finish them. I mean, let's be honest. Like, for someone like Hasan,
I want a ceasefire
I'm not voting
too.
for Biden. I'm not talking
no,
about
I understand,
Biden.
but we found out that Biden, in fact, did nothing to bring that about. So,
well, you can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. What she said.
Well, no, because, okay, Ethan's being fucking dishonest here. You have to fucking talk about, you have to talk about what Biden was doing because, again, Kamala Harris signaled that, hey, I'm not going to do anything different from Joe Biden. I think what he did was good. So that's the problem here, Ethan. You have to be able to make those distinctions. I don't care if people voted for Jill Stein. It's their right. And they didn't vote for Trump. Also, it's been proven that Biden did not try to stop the genocide recently with what Israeli leaders have said recently, so they've had their point proven. Yeah, exactly. Like, we broadly speaking, we do know that Benjamin Netanyahu has done everything fucking possible in order to stop any ceasefire efforts, and Biden could have done something about it to sort of like make sure that Netanyahu would stay accountable for that. He didn't, right? He just kind of just let the Israelis just do whatever the fuck they wanted.
I mean,
Well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No, but I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president said he wanted a ceasefire. She, as a candidate, said I want a ceasefire.
Do not, even if you're like, I don't know how much I trust them. One's like, I want a ceasefire, and the other one's like, finish them.
Well, listen, I think it was certainly obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse. But I think, like, if you're trying to get the candidate to show some indication of this, I can understand. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it. But
yeah, I get your point too. Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen, and like, it feels like
it also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice, and I think you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an active choice to signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump, but they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But I don't know what the point of litigating this is per se. But
well, we're talking about kind of my criticisms of Hasan and how
I
this
don't,
well, let me show you this.
I don't care.
Yeah,
about,
I know.
honestly, I'm like,
let me show you this. This is more.
Honestly,
Yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that, compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that's obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something. And again, I know you don't care about the drama. To me, this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers spreading something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip. I'll show it to you. And you tell me what you think.
This will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm just so serious about this.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says, anyone that has positive feelings at any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi that's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous, dehumanizing language about what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora. And certainly probably people you know in your family.
Nah, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, Zionism is, like, quite literally, they're justifying the extermination of fucking Palestinians. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, like, they're fucking wretched, horrible fucking people. Let's be fucking honest here.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's
I mean, he says Zionism, and I'll tell you,
no,
I think
no,
it's really
sorry,
no,
I gotta correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I gotta tell you, if you look at what's happening right now, and you have positive feelings about Israel,
he said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear about what he said.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is so.
Like, why are we being like Ethan? Why are we being so ridiculously pedantic over fucking the use of hyperbole here? This is very fucking strange. Yeah, Hasan is he's a little bit of he's doing a little bit of hyperbole or some shit. Like a lot of your current like friends and buddies and like DGG, they never fucking shy away from hyperbole. But now you have like this strange fixation with fucking hyperbole now because it's Hasan engaging in a bit of hyperbole. It's silly, ridiculous.
Oh, this is such a petty, like the idea that we're going to police. Hold on, let me respond. You want me to respond to this? Like I say, I don't care about this, but if you're going to force me to respond to it, what Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism, and frankly, I think it's very difficult for me to understand how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now you're saying past and what? Okay,
yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in your life that is a too broad a step away. Let me finish.
Yeah.
But see, you go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about.
Yeah, that's true, Boy Meets Mini. Like Ethan will do the stupid hyperbole of like Hasan has slept with thousands of women, but now he's gonna needle and dime fucking Sam on like Hasan's fucking hyperbole about people supporting Zionism. It's ridiculous. I watched H3 longer than I should have, and Ethan would say stuff like most Jews believe in Zionism and would offer alternative versions of the definition, mostly just being the right of the existence of the Jewish state. Again, for people like Ethan, this is like the stuff that I commented on earlier, like when I did my initial coverage on the fucking content nuke. He's a lazy fucking Zionist, right? And what do I mean by lazy Zionism? Essentially what I mean there is like Ethan will always do like the sort of thing of like, oh man, like I think like, it's really bad like what's going on. But then he'll like go after like a lot of advocates who are more aggressive in calling out the crimes and the actions of, well, Israel and the broader Zionist project. And he'll be very, very aggressive in going after people who are speaking out against, well, like I said earlier, Zionism. So he's kind of like trying to speak out of both sides of his mouth. He really believes in the rights and the self-determination of Palestinians and everything, but he'll also at the same time call Yoav Gallant a good guy and also go after Palestinian advocates, which is why I often ask the question, what would Ethan think of Jewish Voice for Peace people? A lot of them have talked about sort of doing radical necessary steps to have reforms to fucking Israel. And a lot of those people would just be like, hey, we need to do everything possible to sort of just deal with the fact that, Israel is being as bad as it is. He'll just call them self-hating. Maybe, I have no idea. The thing is I don't know what he would say because he's never commented on them before, right? Which is why it's just it's kind of inherently fucking dishonest when he does the whole sort of a song and dance of yeah, man, I think everything that's going on in the state of Israel, what they're doing to the Palestinians is bad and everything. But he's not gonna have any comment on a bunch of different advocacy orgs talking about we should go ahead, push for a ceasefire, do everything possible to sort of improve the material conditions on the ground, because a lot of people that have agree with Jewish Voices for Peace agree with positions that Hasan holds. That's the fucking thing. But again, Ethan does the whole fucking conflation of Judaism and fucking Zionism thing all the fucking time, which is why it's just he's never really sort of an honest fucking actor when it comes to stuff like this. You can't 100% believe a lot of the shit that he's saying. He does not like the Jewish people who are exempt from the draft. He said it's not fair and celebrated that they were possibly going to get forced to join the IDF after Ela complained about it episodes before. Interesting. So he has a problem with what? Yeah, he's complaining about people who are exempt from the draft. I assume people who are probably broadly disabled or whatnot. That's very strange. Or the ultra-Orthodox Jews is probably what he's talking about there, because they just don't agree with the existence of the state, right? Because we know that ultra-Orthodox Jews have quite a few exemptions within from joining the IDF, and also Benjamin Netanyahu was doing, everything necessary to sort of destroy that. I think he adopted a ton. Not all, though. I think this is also on him, of Ela's politics. That's probably what it is, right? I think Ela is probably... Yeah, like you said before, AJ, this has been, broadly speaking, Ela's position. It's Orthodox or Hasidic. Yes, it's the more it's the far more religious Jews who don't believe in the existence of the state of Israel, shit like that.
A poll that people had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that type of conflation, I think, is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, I don't want to get too passionate about this, but I'll tell you something. I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah, my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, called my father and asked him if I'm anti-Semitic. Now, this is just one, that is just an example, an illustration of conflating when he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is, this conflation is dangerous for Jews. It is a fig leaf.
Yeah, and this is very, very true here by Sam. The problem with the the conflation that's constantly done by Zionists all the fucking time is that people, broadly speaking, are going to become more anti-Semitic as a consequence of the actions of the state of Israel, because Israel very often will just be yeah, we represent all of the state and all of the actions of Jews everywhere all the fucking time. They do this constantly. We know this. We've seen this behavior happen before, broadly speaking. And, well, guess what? Nobody fucking agrees with that shit, right? And so, as a result, hey, it causes some fucking problems, Because what happens then after? People are going to think that all of the abhorrent actions that the state of Israel are doing, well, that also is all fucking Jews. All Jews probably must also think like that as well, when that's obviously not the case.
And a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of children and women and men for that matter, it is not keeping Israelis safe. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly, than the idea that he said positive any time. I mean,
That's true.
You do a show
Sam,
4 hours a day, he does a show 5, or as far as I can tell, 15 hours a day, and to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not one tiny clip, Sam.
Well,
you don't know
wait
this
a
is a totality of behavior.
But you
and by the way,
want
it's
to
easy, and I
care
appreciate
about
that you can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
Yeah, like, no, I can't believe Hasan did the thing. He's doing a thing. He's being stinky and mean about me. No. Like, Sam doesn't give a shit. He's not going to give a shit about any of this stuff.
Well,
you kind of are. You're saying actually I'm wrong for caring about it.
No, yes, in fact, I'm saying this conflation is incredibly dangerous. It is
I think
disingenuous.
it's dangerous to ignore what's being described as dehumanizing violent language for American Jews. That has nothing to do with the
That
word.
is a complete mischaracterization of that.
It's not.
He
God, he's
never
not
says
fit
the
to be a
word
dog
Jews.
walker.
He never says the word
He
Jews.
says a
Listen, how many members of Kufi have positive feelings?
let me say,
How many millions of members of Kufi, the Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism, and so
But
it
it
is not
describes most
specifically.
Jews.
No.
Yes, it does, Sam.
It describes most Christian evangelicals too.
It may be them too, but it also describes
Okay,
70%
so
of
that
Jews.
is not anti-Semitism. That is
Well, I
about
don't know.
a
What do you call it when somebody?
Yeah, that would not be anti-Semitism then. Yeah, he's doing the fucking conflation thing. He's doing the fucking conflationary stuff, which is extremely fucking dangerous.
He's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam.
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
I don't care about evangelical people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
so
you're
you say the same thing about Christian evangelicals too. It is not anti-Semitism. It is not. It just isn't.
Like, taking one example in isolation, which is what we've done here.
Well, you are the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well,
I don't even want to talk about
fundamentally, I
it.
disagree
I'm
with
using
you.
your example, and in that instance, that is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I
And
disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well
It's
on
dangerous
that.
for Jews, it's dangerous for this society.
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous.
We love doing conflations because that's all that it is. It's just conflation. He's doing the conflation. He's doing the fucking conflation thing about like what fucking Christian evangelicals think about Jews. That's what it is.
To what I perceive as hand waving what's happening here. I know you said you aren't doing
I'm
that.
not hand waving.
Yeah, no, you're doing the opposite. You're endorsing.
Decades of thought about this.
So right, sure. But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous
No, I'm not saying that at all.
I personally, I mean,
I'm
Jewish
saying
people have a collective
mischaracterization
memory of
of
trauma,
it as
Sam, and it
anti-Semitism.
starts a certain way. And it starts with people. It starts with dehumanizing language, like saying you're not fit to walk a dog. I mean, what are we
He's
doing
not
here?
talking about
It's
Jews.
irresponsible language.
He's not talking
He's
about
talking
Jews.
about 73% of Jewish
No,
people.
you said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not, because we have millions upon millions of members of Kufi.
Yeah, and there's how many fucking anti-Zionist Jews that fucking exist, Ethan? You're doing the fucking conflationary thing. That's the stuff that fucking Hasan is calling out. Like, I don't know. Like, honestly, like, all I could say to like, Ethan here is just, like cope. He's doing the meme. He's doing the meme that fucking evangelicals and fucking the Zionists within Israel you do all the time to fucking justify their abhorrent fucking actions.
We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad
and
have-
you cannot say it's
could you just-
anti-Semitism.
could you
You cannot
describe
say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians than Jews.
Would you say that your father, who you mentioned, said something to you, that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel?
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now?
I would assume so.
Not in terms of like I support them, but
I've
like, I
had
think
positive
Israel.
feelings. I went
Why does that matter? Like, okay, whatever.
to Israel on,
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi,
my
not fit to walk a
confirmation.
dog. How do you feel about
No,
that?
that's you saying that.
That's
That is not
literally what he
Hasan
said. I'll play it again.
I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of
Yeah,
regardless of
meanwhile,
your
what you
background,
say
any kind
about
of fucking,
Palestinians,
Zionist tendencies
dog,
should be
yeah,
treated in the same way
exactly.
as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm just so serious about this.
Another thing he's doing, by the way, and Hassan
That's,
does it.
listen,
He
you can
plays
say
around with
that's
the term
wrong thing to do.
Zionists, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews. He's talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions.
Yeah, like, Ethan, you're doing the fucking conflationary fucking shit, Ethan. Sam's fucking got you by the balls here, Ethan. He's got you by the balls. You're doing the fucking whole conflationary bit. This is 10 times more dangerous for fucking Jews in comparison. Saying that, like, if you've exhibited, like, positive feelings to the state of fucking Israel, which is what Hasan is talking about there, broadly speaking, that's what he's fucking mentioning. That's not, like, hyperbole or anything. That's not a ridiculous fucking assertion or whatever. That is what he is saying, plainly to see. That's not... we're not fucking capping here. He literally just played the clip. He's talking about people who are showing sympathies for Zionism and the Zionists, broadly speaking, because there's millions upon millions of Jews who are a part of different, like, anti-Zionist fucking organizations, like Jewish Voices for fucking Peace. There's a lot of Jews that are within that fucking goddamn organization. lots and lots of them, Ethan, and you're just willing to like throw away their perspectives because like I don't know, they're like not fucking Zionist enough for you or some shit. Or like it's silly, it's ridiculous. You know. It's like that weirdo in chat last night who questioned me about my trust of the Indian government. Yeah, that guy was pretty fucking weird. I'll be quite honest. I don't know what that dude's deal was. He's doing the fucking meme. He's conflating Zionism with Judaism. Well, not with Judaism, but with what Jews believe. And then he'll go back to like the statistics, the polls of like, oh well, 73% of people have like some kind of connection to the Israel. That is so fucking broad that it can mean almost anything. What the fuck does that mean? That could literally mean like that weather is nice in fucking Israel or some shit, or they want to visit fucking Israel or something. Like, what does that fucking mean? That can mean anything.
Billions of Christians, more Christians.
Okay, well, listen, I don't think they're neo-Nazis, not fit the dogs, either. I think it's insane language.
Listen, you don't want to tell me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business, we do that.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I just think that, you know,
I just think that like it's an unfair thing
I
to
just
say.
think like Arabs that support Israel aren't fit to walk a dog.
It is not anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, we're at an impasse on this one. Yeah, so I mean, but anyway, another thing he does.
Yeah, it is not anti-Semitic.
He's someone that plays around with Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hasan said, but I don't think that you could accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he's saying Zionist tendencies. What does that mean? What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to talk to him on Friday. You can ask him what a Zionist tendency is. I suppose I would guess, and you know, like I've looked at polls too.
Oh, the fucking that debate's gonna also happen as well, huh? It is gonna happen. Oh boy.
You know, people have various different understandings of what Zionism is, but I think it is my guess, and I don't know what he was thinking specifically, but the notion of an ethno-state that engages and allows whatever in the name of Zionism allows for this mass slaughter, I think is horrific.
Sure, me too.
Okay, I mean, then I think we the three of us agree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so.
Yeah, but like, you know, you'll do the fucking whole. Oh, I think actually like Yoav Galant's like a pretty decent guy. Meanwhile, Yoav Galant has like an ICC warrant out for him.
Another thing is like to take it even further. I mean, Hasan pretty much like openly
Let's
supports
talk about
Hamas.
Hasan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me about, I mean,
well, let me.
I'm not here to explore.
Yeah, I have a list of things.
But if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization. We call them terrorists in this country. We call the ANC terrorists.
What do you think about them, Sam?
Listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But I sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very, that is an understanding of human nature.
That you're not avoiding Israelis, by the way, just to point out an inconsistency there.
How so?
Well, you're not. You're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction. It's just evil, and I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
Right.
What? Yeah, when did Sam ever fucking mention that? That's pretty fucking dishonest there by Ethan. Okay, nice meme.
I'm inferring. Because I asked you if you think they're evil. You didn't really answer that.
Listen, I don't know what.
What does that matter?
On October 8th, but toward Hamas. But I can tell you that there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA, even the PLO,
Sam,
that ultimately become a political organization.
I think the comparison of Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous, and I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think.
What? That's just a lie from Ethan. He's just lying. That's insane, dude.
So he explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible. That's something he said.
I think he said.
That's not. Oh, what do you mean? Yet you're fucking talking about Israel fucking. Yet you're doing the defense for fucking like Yoav Galant saying he's a good guy and he justified fucking starving out the Palestinians and cutting off their electricity. Ethan, what are you talking about, dude? That's some fucking bullshit, bro. That's insane, dude.
The totality, by the way, Sam, in the totality of their campaign, I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did kill civilians were almost all held accountable for what they did. That's a difference, Sam.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that.
A significant difference.
What? Oh, I gotta listen to this.
It is a significant difference. I mean, I imagine that, we have...
What do you want to ask
me?
Well,
I mean, if you want to ask me about,
well, let me...
I'm not here to explore...
Yeah, I have a list of things.
But if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think, look...
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization.
So he's talking about... Okay, so he was talking about the amount of civilians that were killed by Hamas. Dude, the amount that have been killed by Hamas wholeheartedly pale in comparison. In comparison to the amount of people that have been killed due to the fucking tensions between Palestinians and Israelis throughout the fucking decades. The fucking gall of fucking Ethan saying shit like that is insane, dude. That's actually nuts, bro.
Them terrorists in this country. We call the
What do
ANC
you think about
terrorists.
them, Sam?
But listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But I sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very, that is an understanding of human nature.
That you're
you
not
are the
supporting
subject-
Israelis, by the way, just to point out an inconsistency there.
How so?
Well, you're not. You're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction.
Ela, this is in reference to Avgalan, yeah. Ela said he was a good guy and moderate. Ethan would then go on record and say that the controversy was overblown, and Ela didn't know what she was talking about. Yeah, dude. Like, she directly says, like, yeah, Yoav Galan's a pretty good guy, and I actually was all overblown. Yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever, dude. It's fucking crazy. Yeah, they haven't unalived as many people. Most unalivings Hamas does are a lot of belligerents. It's just silly, dude.
It's just evil, and I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
Right. I'm inferring. Because I asked you if you think they're evil. You didn't really answer that.
Listen,
You avoided
I don't know what Gazans felt on October 8th, but toward Hamas. But I can tell you that there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA, even the PLO,
Now, Sam,
that ultimately become a political organization.
I think the comparison to Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous, and I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible. That's something.
Yeah, that's just a fucking lie. He is just like, we can literally pull up the fucking clip. Not the clip. Mandela quote on Israel. Like, we can literally pull that up right now. Mandela was talking about Israel's violence against Palestinians. Exactly. Mandela's statements on Israel, the Palestinians, the Jewish community in the Arab world. Would you agree with him? What is his, There's a bunch of different quotes. So what? I believe that there are many similarities between our struggle and that of the PLO. We live under a unique form of colonialism in South Africa as well as in Israel, and a lot flows from that. As I have said, we have many members of the Jewish community in our struggle, and they have occupied top positions in our organization. But that does not mean to say that we are enemies of Israel. That the enemies of Israel are our enemies. We refuse to take that position. You can call it being political or a moral question, but for anyone who changes his principles, depending on who he's dealing with, that is not a man who can lead a nation. Let's see. I wish to take this opportunity to pay tribute to these Palestinian Israeli leaders. In particular, we pay homage to the memory of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, who paid the supreme sacrifice in the pursuit of peace. So, Rabin, keep in mind, this was the guy who was in power in around 1991 during the Oslo Accords, during the Oslo camps, right? So, and he got assassinated by further far-right Israeli, Zionist groups. You want to know some of the people who were a part of those organizations? Netanyahu was a part of that. Now, did he have a hand in the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin? I'm not saying that, no. As far as we know, no. He probably didn't have any hand. Didn't Akash assassinate him? I don't remember exactly who assassinated Yitzhak Rabin, but it was some fucking super fucking insane dude. We are proud as humanists that the international consensus on the need for the implementation of the Oslo agreements is finding expression in the efforts. Because Rabin got killed, the Oslo fucking agreements got shot down as a result. It was not going to happen anymore. In the efforts of the multitude of Israeli and Palestinian citizens of goodwill who are marching together, campaigning together for an end to the prevarication. Prevarication? Provocation? I don't know. These soldiers of peace are indeed sending a message to us all that the day is not far off when Palestinian Jewish children will enjoy the joyful abandon of children of God in a peaceful, prosperous region. These soldiers of peace recognize that the world we live in is rising above the trappings of religious and racial hatred or conflict. We all know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Palestinians. We identify with the PLO because, just like ourselves, they are fighting for the right to self-determination. Like, we broadly speaking, we know what Nelson Mandela said about, well, Palestinians. He was on their side, broadly speaking. So Ethan, like, invoking, like, Nelson Mandela here is kind of ridiculous. This whole thing has made me hate Mudahar, somewhere named Gamers. Epic Mealtime dude dropped the boxing max, which is Harvey Morstein, I think. He was defending Ethan, and people dug up a Reddit post where he was like, here's an analysis I found. The people who died in the ambulance were trying to martyr themselves. What is this in reference to, AJ? I have no idea. And the Epic Mealtime dude is like, I was just quoting an analysis. I didn't necessarily say I agreed with it, but it's the most obvious thing. That he was trying to find a reason to validate these ambulance drivers' deaths. Which, there's been a bunch of ambulance drivers that have been killed by Israel. Like, I'm not very sure what this is in reference to.
He said,
I think you could say that tactically speaking, listen,
by the way, Sam, in the
if you
totality of their campaign, I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did kill civilians were almost all held accountable for what they did. That's a difference, Sam.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that...
A significant difference.
Well, it is a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people...
Yeah, I mean, we understand, we know why Hamas became more fucking radicalized, broadly speaking. They became more radicalized because, guess what? They used to be, what? They used to be, like, a more, like, charitable, peaceful organization. They were just radical, and then they got a bunch of money from the Israelis because they wanted to use Hamas as a foil to the PLO to, well, split up the Palestinians and sort of market, like, they're all just a bunch of fucking terrorists. We know why they did this, broadly speaking. It's not ridiculous to see. It's a whole divide and conquer sort of strategy. We know this, so...
who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. And, you know, so...
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, that's accountability.
Being
But,
killed, okay.
but
I mean being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf. Like,
what, you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, I'm saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
The ANC did?
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in England.
Yeah, I mean, but what about, okay, like, if Ethan wants to do this, like, fucking whataboutism shit, what about the PKK? What about, like, the Rojavans? Have the Rojavans done the exact same thing? No, as far as I could tell, I don't know. What about, like, Hezbollah, Hamas, whatever. For Hezbollah and Hamas, you would say, like, no. The PKK? Rojava? We can do all this fucking stupid whataboutism fucking bullshit, but, you know, meh. Ethan's not gonna fucking know any of this stuff. Like, he's essentially trying to prescribe the exact same standards that Nelson Mandela had onto Hamas, when the situations are completely fucking different.
England and throughout Ireland, I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern Gang when they killed, over 100 villagers in 1948. I mean,
that's a good point. Yeah, those are Zionist fucking militias. The Irgun. I don't even remember the name of the other militia, but the Zionist militias have killed so many fucking Palestinians throughout the time of the Nakba. What about those guys, Ethan?
History is full of examples of organizations that commit terrorist acts.
Well,
Now, I will tell you,
people look at South
personally,
Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians, and which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure. The part that I don't like about people say, like, I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying, like, what do you expect, right? But the truth is that people use South Africa as an example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
Well, I mean, listen, we had
Yeah, but it just depends on the fucking situation. It's not black and white, Ethan. Like, this is also, like, another one of the big problems. He's trying to, like, boil it down as if it's, like, you know, dude, yeah, it's all either, like, they do the fucking, bad shit, the fucking Zionists, or, like, whoever the fuck, it's all, like, a zero-sum game type of fucking bullshit. It's like, no, it's not. That's not how that works. It's not all a zero-sum game. This is nonsense.
a year, we had the Great March of Return, where Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever, that were innocent people who went there, and snipers are shooting down unarmed civilians. And so, time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally, covering this, my attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, functionally like, the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as you don't have access to resources, you have 50% unemployment, the apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations.
I can't imagine what I would. Okay, but I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I
well,
don't know.
it's not really working out.
Well, none of it's working out, is it?
No,
I mean,
not much at all.
Greatest,
Not really
what
much
is
at all.
called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism, the way that Israel is organized as a society, is not protecting Jews. It's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is. There may have been a time where Zionism had and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside. Folks like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, I don't know how I would react in that type of miserition, frankly.
Can I ask you,
but again, Ehud Barak said that he would pick up a weapon were he one of them, and
That's fine.
he's far closer to the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why.
I don't think Ethan knows who that is.
So let me ask you this: what do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm. And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean, I suspect. I mean, I don't know what the strategy was. I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware of that the dance.
The Nova rave.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew that rave was happening. I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian.
You leave out that they attacked kibbutzim, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did. But I'm saying that they. I don't know what the strategy was.
Well, okay, so what do you think? Would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
I had no doubt on that day that Israel was going to respond.
Oh, insane. Yeah, right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond, frankly, and I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness.
Yeah, so Sam Sedar has pretty much hit the nail on the head with the same thing that I was also talking about. Broadly speaking, what we know, broadly speaking, sort of the position for as to what Hamas is here. The reason why October 7th happened was because Hamas felt like they were being left out politically. They were being driven in a corner politically, which is why I've been consistent on this, that this was all inherently political from the beginning. All of it was inherently political because of, well, generally speaking, the fact that at the request of Netanyahu, the Trump administration left out the, Palestinians out of the equation, because Trump was the main reason. Well, not Trump. Rather, it was Netanyahu. He was the main reason as to why Netanyahu was the main reason for as to why the Palestinians were never involved in any of the talks. I don't know why I've been having such trouble saying that. Jesus Christ. We broadly know this, but a lot of people never fucking mention this. And I criticize also, I criticize Hasan. I criticize a lot of the fucking MLs about this shit like this. They just think they're doing it, inherently, and that, Hamas is good. They're fighting the good fight, and they're being, an honorable sort of, peaceful advocacy, or with the attacks that they're doing right now. No. This was purely fucking political. Totally fucking political. From the beginning. This was always about the Abrahamic Accords, inherently. And so it's very good that he's mentioning this. But does Ethan know about the Abrahamic Accords? Well, that's fine. Probably not. So.
Of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy, 80-90% of the structures.
Yeah, just like you're saying, Boy Meets Mini. Even if it's in defense of the Palestinian existence, that's the motive. 1,000 fucking %. From the beginning, this has all been political. Every fucking actor that has been in this, it's all fucking political. To the Houthis, to Hezbollah, to the Iranians, to the Saudi Arabians, to the Egyptians. It's all fucking political. All of it.
Hospitals that they would use.
Hamas didn't know that because that's why they attacked.
food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in like the
I
justification
think
for
Hamas
what they're doing
probably
there.
took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
I believe that they probably. I mean, I'm just
So,
not projecting that part,
I
but
mean,
they would be able to-
they still count as fucking hostages, Ethan. Is it a good thing that they're fucking taking children or whatever? No, but they're like this is what they have to do. They're in a desperate situation politically. Like I'm not giving like any particular prescription. I'm not saying whether that's good or bad or whatever. It's what they're doing because they're desperate. And if you're desperate, people are more than likely going to do more sort of like extreme actions as a result.
to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel's doing what they're doing. And I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going I'm not going to endorse Hamas's strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because this is what I'm getting to is Hamas. I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen. You know?
I can't imagine that they assumed that there would be this level of destruction.
I mean, that's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent the IDF can be. You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far, use
I didn't think they go this far, but
bomb hospitals and shoot EMTs and have
kill aid workers.
And, I think Hamas is certainly up to criticism for their strategy here. If
that's an understatement.
Well, I mean, if that's the
well, I mean, they're a terrorist organization that intentionally antagonized like the IDF to come mass slaughter their civilians.
I think that if
No, that's not fucking how that works, Ethan. What are you talking about? Okay, so then, Ethan, what do you think of like the Israeli state providing funds as a foil for the fucking Palestinians? Yeah, that is fucking rich, Ethan. Because we know that Netanyahu and the Israeli state provided funding to Hamas to act as a foil to the PLO. Because optically speaking, they looked a lot better to Western audiences. That is very fucking rich. The videos of the Palestinian in jail who are largely innocent are abhorrent. I hate the free the hostage shit. Israel sacrificed them to destroy Gaza. You pretty much hitting the nail on the head there, AJ. They, like, the state of Israel could care less about the hostages. They've never given a shit about any of those guys.
They overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, there's I don't know that there would be anybody who would make a case that this was their.
But like, I don't like this conversation about like what did Hamas think? Like, what's the sort of like calculations, the estimations that are being brought like down, being done here? I don't know. Like, okay, what's like sort of the point of having this conversation, right? Like, we don't know. We can't read the fucking minds of the leadership of Hamas. Broadly speaking, we understand why October 7th happened, right? Very, very easily. So, like, trying to make, like, inferences further on from there. Because I've had this take before. Like, the reason why a bunch of, like, Hamas militants probably attacked, besides the 2 military bases that they attacked, they probably also attacked, like, a bunch of kibbutzim and a bunch of, the rave that was also attacked is because we're talking about insurgents here. I'm not expecting insurgents to operate with like perfect combat doctrine. They're insurgents. So it's very fucking strange to me, in my personal opinion, no, it's just my personal opinion. I find it really fucking strange that we're kind of doing this whole like, oh, well, it's kind of like, I don't know, guys, like, it's kind of weird what's, like, going on here with all these, like, with, like, the sort of, like, efficaciousness of the engagements that Hamas are doing here. It's like, dude, they're fucking, like, undisciplined militant group. Of course, a bunch of them are probably going to go off and probably attack random people. That's normal? Like, what are you talking about? They're not a fucking perfectly organized military unit.
And to have Israel respond
or discipline.
Well, and the same is true of, like, I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like, it was totally unprecedented. You know what happened. So maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was. On the other hand,
I have no doubt that they did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology of Israel's defense, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas underestimated,
overestimated
overestimated
the IDF, I guess.
what they would be able to, what kind of destruction they would wreak, and they overestimated.
I mean, as far as I can tell, there was like celebrations going on for. I don't remember what the celebration was for, but there were celebrations that was going on during October 7th, right? And that's why the IDF was kind of caught with their pants down. And from what I understand, like, the Israeli intelligence agencies, They had an idea that there might be an attack happening, but they diverted a bunch of like IDF personnel from those areas anyways. Now, obviously, could we do like a whole like conspiracy theory saying like, oh, then it's obvious that the Israeli intelligence agencies intended for this to happen so they can justify the attacks on Gaza? I'm not gonna fucking do that because that is just complete wild speculation and conspiracism. But we know that, broadly speaking, like, I don't know if it's Mossad. I think it's Mossad. We know that they knew. They knew that there was an attack coming. But they diverted a bunch of troops away because of the holidays. They were sloppy. I think that's probably, yeah. So, yes, it was Mossad. Okay. Mossad knew there was an attack coming. They knew. But they diverted a bunch of people away. That is just sloppy work. Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. Even though they knew, they had an idea that something might happen as a result of the Abrahamic Accords. Because again, root basis of all of this. Why is this happening? It's the Abrahamic Accords. That's why.
They underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetrate on Gaza. I don't know that any...
Yes, and yeah, like you're saying, Boy Meets Mini, Hamas also saw that vulnerability. Exactly. They knew that a bunch of the, troops that were generally, like, deployed there, that a bunch of them were gone. It's probably like the 9/11 thing where info didn't jump to their to other divisions. Probably, yeah. Who knows if we'll ever know the sort of reasoning for as to why this communication, like, why there was like a communication breakdown there. It's one of those situations where it's like, I'm not sure if we're ever going to know for certain, like 100%, like what the broader issue was, but like we know that there was a failing there by Mossad to the like in communicating with the IDF as to like what could potentially happen on October 7th. And as a result, well, October 7th happened, and well, this renewed war in Gaza occurred as a result.
Anyone could have imagined that Israel would have engaged in this level of destruction and immiseration and bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities and destroying the infrastructure. I mean, it's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hasan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is not him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right? By the way, just, there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
There's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I just think that's interesting. It's pretty fucked up, don't you think?
What? 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 Why are you asking? Ethan, why does that matter? That there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza. Dude, do you think they can afford any of that shit? Building bomb shelters is expensive. What? Also, Israel would have to approve the building of that bomb shelter, you fucking idiot. Okay, Ethan.
Do I think it's fucked up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the point. Like,
well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would
Well,
definitely
I know,
be a lot
I've
safer.
seen what happened to tunnels under hospitals.
Your statement is so you say there were tunnels under hospitals.
Israel built the ones under the first one that they went into. They built it when they were occupying Gaza.
Are you right? That's true of that one. I mean, they have a vast
that
tunnel
is
network,
true.
obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is like, what?
Why did you bring up any of this shit to begin with, Ethan? You brought it up. What? This is really fucking perplexing, dude.
It's like, what can we do? Now, it's obviously insanely
Well,
difficult
as
to say.
Americans, I think we can stop aid immediately.
Was
I mean,
this-
it's not gonna happen?
Was this an attempt? Yeah, was this like an attempt? That had to be a gotcha, right? He was trying to do a gotcha, and Sam was just like, okay, like, why the fuck does that matter? Because why does that matter? What? This is very strange.
Favor of that, by the way.
Okay, I mean, good.
I mean, I just
think we should call for all aid to PCs, and I think we should stop protecting them in the
What should
UN.
have Israel done on October 8th, I guess? Like, what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
I mean,
Without
listen,
saying not this.
what should they have done on October 8th? I mean, I think that there is.
Yeah, he tried to do an Epstein he tried to do like a Mott and Bailey. Yeah, he did not do a very good job at the Mott and Bailey. Let's be honest here. It's just like, it's a point, but it's just like there's nothing to it. It's like, why the fuck does that matter? It's silly.
attempt to take out leadership. They should have. But let's not, like, to
Well, the
look at
leadership
that
was
moment,
underground.
Yeah, to look at that moment in history, like maybe it was.
I disagree because they had to do something.
Maybe in that moment, they had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
Right.
I mean, this was.
And so what should they have done?
Ages ago. Well, I mean,
You're avoiding, yeah.
Okay, I think what they should have done
Yeah.
is begun empowering Palestinians in the West Bank. They should have done
This
the
is my
same.
favorite answer, Sam. You're saying that this is what Hasan told me. They should disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I think honestly, when you see that your policies have failed.
What? Since when is like? Where are you even getting that from? This is just very strange. I'll be honest. This is weird.
But I don't think
You
it's a fair
actually don't believe
agenda.
that that's a real thing, though. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military terrorist attack of all time, Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their
No, wait a
government.
second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's
No, in
different
a
from
realistic
what I
way, not in a
expect
fairy
them
tale,
to do.
Sam.
Well, listen, there is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been. It has been quite clear. Their agenda has been since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount and tried to scuttle peace talks. The agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch Zionists in Israel. The agenda has been to bring about this moment. There is no doubt about it. The annihilation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda in Israel for far too long. So from the perspective, anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do. Anything.
There's nothing they could have done that because of the situation, everything,
No,
anything
I'm
they
saying
would have done
that
would have
this
been.
was there was no plan that on this day they were going to do this. But if you go back 10 or 15 years ago and look into Bibi Netanyahu's brain, the idea that this is ultimately going to happen was definitely the agenda.
What, in terms of like
Find a
attacking
way,
Gaza or inciting
find
an
a way.
attack?
I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time what I think was a smaller segment of the Israeli body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger portion of the Israeli politic. So I mean, anything I say in terms of should is fantastical. Anything.
So yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like,
There was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have done that. They could have.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we know that Benjamin Netanyahu has been the one who's been constantly getting in the way of any fucking potential ceasefire talks. Even under the Biden administration, we know that, like, Netanyahu has been doing everything possible to make it as difficult as possible to have a fucking ceasefire talk between the U.S. and Hamas and the Israelis. Like, we know, we know this. I shouldn't have said like not between the U.S. and the Israeli and Hamas, between Israel and Hamas. There we go. They've been doing everything possible to get in the way of that process because for Benjamin Netanyahu, this is all about just killing Palestinians. That's what he wants.
Ended it after a
I mean,
week.
Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could Hamas ended the
By
war?
leaving, by releasing the hostages.
No, listen. Israel has said time and time again that
Ethan! Maybe you should tell Netanyahu to stop bombing the fucking hostages. What do you mean? There's been protests in Israel about this. What? This is incredible, bro. This is what I mean by fucking Ethan is like a fucking late. This is what people mean when they say that Ethan is a Zionist. He's willing to completely just shirk any responsibility that people like Benjamin Netanyahu or like Yoav Gallant, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich have in any of this, and has to just only defer it only to Hamas, only to the Palestinians every single time. This is what I mean by he's a lazy Zionist. He's willing to do everything fucking possible, but he'll claim he's not a fucking Zionist. He supports Palestinian emancipation. He supports like Palestinian rights and everything. We're never going to. We have to shirk all possible responsibility that the Israelis have in this, because obviously everything has been Hamas's fault. That's not how that works, Ethan. There's two sides to this fucking coin.
that release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe
and
that's.
over and over.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite.
No, they have said that, like, literally. Like, do we need to find like the quote? Benjamin Netanyahu release of hostages. So people will say that this is probably biased because, it's a Middle Eastern publication. But yeah, abandoned Israeli hostages for personal gain, says former Shin Bet head. Shin Bet, I believe, is, I think that's also an Israeli intelligence organization, right? Or rights organization, security agency. So it's intelligence agency. So Shin Bet heads are saying like Netanyahu is shirking his responsibility to get the hostages. What else? It says fewer than 25 hostages. Netanyahu. Let's see. What do we have here? Won't surrender to Hamas by ending war to get back the hostages. Can't trick Hamas either. This is from the Times of Israel that's saying this. PM says fighting won't end until terror group destroyed. Derides experts who say he could fool Hamas with fake promise to end war, get captives back, and then resume fighting. Hey, Ethan! Ethan, this is from the Times of Israel, which is an Israeli publication. More Zionists, but okay, dude. Yeah, dude. It's ridiculous. We know what Benjamin Netanyahu's position is. He wants to just kill all the Palestinians. That's it.
I believe that if the
Really, you really haven't seen those statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review them. I mean, it depends when. It depends when.
I'll
they're made
review
too, right?
them,
Like,
yeah.
there's a response to it.
At any time they could have done.
What has Hamas done to end the war?
Hamas offered
What have
the
they done to
hostages
end the war?
early on to say Hamas offered all the hostages in agreement in response to Israel, not
Yeah, that was Sinwar, right? Sinwar, the main sort of guy who's like pushing for peace, who the Israelis just fucking assassinated. He was the main guy like doing the negotiations on the side of Hamas, but he got fucking killed, like along with the rest of the leadership of Hamas. But yeah, well, they're not doing anything. They're not being honest, guys. They're not being heckin' honest to Reno. It's silly. It's ridiculous.
coming into Gaza. I mean, there's just to defend
not true.
Israel's actions
That didn't happen
as being
either.
inevitable. When do you think they should have ended it? When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel done? You
Yeah.
tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes. I think more moving slowly, because as you kind of pointed out but didn't really acknowledge,
When do you
is that
think they should have
do you want me to answer?
More moving
So the leadership is
slowly.
obviously
What the
underground.
fuck does that even mean,
So it's going
dude?
to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission, but I think militarily they probably have some obligation to their citizenry at the very least to like take out where we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. Like, they can't just allow
So
missiles
be
to be shot
clear,
at.
tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should have been 2 weeks?
Yeah,
3 weeks?
so far, like, Ethan is not providing a lot of answers. Not a lot of answers are being provided here by Ethan.
How many Hamas leaders, how many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out that virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're the one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical, what should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides like special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea to. I think there's a space where they could like try to find peace partners in Gaza before just destroying the whole thing. Like, obviously they approached it completely
Whoa, they have done that. They've been trying to do that, but Benjamin Netanyahu refuses. Crazy.
wrong, right? But there are ways I think that could have happened that are realistic, like trying to forge some kind of peace partner, some kind of alliance, some kind of
All
international
those people
coalition.
were marching. They were marching in the Great March of Return, week after week after
Sam,
week.
was there
after
Hamas
week after
activity
week.
at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching. Sinwar was marching there.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first dozens of these things before the snipers? No, they weren't.
No, they weren't. Yeah, there was no attacks during the Great March of Return. Again, like I said, he's just a fucking Zionist, man. That's what he is. It's crazy. Just complete ignorance and just shirking of the responsibility. It's incredible, dude. It's actually insane. Shirking and complete responsibility of the IDF and the fucking of the IDF, and also of the responsibilities that are being held from for the God, what's the name of the military apparatus as well, of the IDF and the state, because they're both as responsible here. This is fucking pathetic here from Ethan, dude. Just wholeheartedly, just completely and utterly unwilling to say, like, yeah, actually, Israel does have some part to play in all of this. It's actually insane.
So there were the people for peace.
There was Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence.
Yeah, I
They
might
were,
be
like,
being
trying
a
to
bit
cross the border.
anti-Semitic. That's true.
You're like,
Not militants. Militants were trying to cross the border.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm.
Yeah, that's just like, isn't that just a lie? That's just a lie. Like, they started, like, when the Great March of Return happened, from what I understand, from what I remember, the Great March of Return happened, and what, as a result of the Great March of Return, of people walking up to the fence, the Israelis started putting fucking snipers, and they were the ones who pulled the fucking triggers first. It was the Israelis who fucking started this whole ordeal, Ethan. But okay. Nah, it's everything has to be on the it's all the Palestinians' fault. It has to all be a responsibility of the Palestinians, and it's all they're the ones who are at fault. Obviously, this is actually insane, dude.
I mean, again, I think that there's a way for Israel to try. I think they can obviously pursue peace. The way that they're doing it is impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up, it's insane, it's genocidal, it's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying.
They're
I'm
not
saying the
pursuing
opposite.
peace.
Yeah, but they're not
What
pursuing
they've done. I mean,
peace,
obviously,
Ethan.
they're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. It's. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable based on everything that happened.
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon? That they
This
would
is
have leveled
fucking
hospitals,
crazy,
universities,
dude.
and 90% of the homes? I mean, how
I don't know to what extent,
what?
but like a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. You're
No,
putting,
You are justifying it, though, Ethan. You're hiding behind language that overall does justify the actions of the Israelis, completely shirking any of the responsibility that either Netanyahu or any of the commanders within the IDF or anything have in this, because they have responsibility in this as well, Ethan. It's not just forehead. It's all just Hamas, bro. It's all Hamas. They're the ones at fault here. No, that's not fucking how that works. I'm getting strong Victor Gao energy from Ethan. That's actually a pretty good fucking comparison there, Boy Meets Mini. Like, just a complete fucking just shirking of responsibility. Don't pay attention to anything that the Israelis are doing. Yeah, I think the response has been like kind of bad and aggressive. But I don't think that was like their intention or anything, guys. Okay, yeah, sure, Ethan. Sure, man. This is fucking ridiculous.
Putting this on me, like I'm
Inevitability. No, I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder what you must think of an Israeli body politic where this level of atrocity is inevitable.
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
Listen, I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that's because I have a much more theoretically jaded view of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But like to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
So
You can't think. I just wonder, like, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Like, listen, like, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country. I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable. I can't even imagine what I would think would be inevitable. And I think, like, our invasion of
That
Iraq
is true, yeah. There was no way of knowing exactly how aggressive the extent would have been for, like, people just get fucking how aggressive the administration was going to be in terms of like these deportations. There was no way of fucking knowing that. This is a very, very good example here by Sam.
The complete lack of caring, and the only thing that we mitigate that is like there were no images coming out of Iraq, or very few, and certainly I was exposing them more than the American population writ large. But to perceive,
yeah, keep in mind, Sam Sedar was one of the very first like prominent vocal voices.
Like you're a gotcha player at heart.
Is that because of my brain damage?
No, it's because you go after children, and there ain't enough room in this preschool for the two of us.
Thanks, Sundowner. Very, very cool. God, I just completely forgot what I was going to say. What was I saying? What was the point I had there? The Sundowner, you fucking distracted me, dude. You bastard. Fuck you. I completely forget what I was going to say. God damn it.
what we did in Iraq as inevitable.
It's a different situation. That's completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it.
No,
And again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But
No, we're gonna scroll back. I want to say that point again.
I mean, how
I don't know to what extent, but a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. You're putting this on me.
Yeah, like I said before, yeah, you are justifying it implicitly, though, Ethan. So don't fucking by just completely shirking responsibility. Well, you know, a typical fucking lazy Zionist behavior here, of course, by Ethan.
Inevitability. No, I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder what you must think of an Israeli body politic where this level of atrocity is inevitable.
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
Listen, I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that's because I have a much more theoretically jaded view of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But to expect that what they've done is inevitable. I just wonder, like, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Like, listen, like, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country.
I have bad news for you, Sam. I don't think Ethan knows. I don't think Ethan has any fucking understanding as to what is the body politic of Israel. I'm just gonna say that. I don't think Ethan has any fucking idea. I'm gonna be quite honest.
I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable. I can't even imagine what I would think would be inevitable. And I think, our invasion of Iraq and the complete lack of caring, and the only thing that we mitigate that is that, there were no images coming out of Iraq, or very few, and certainly I was exposing them more than the American population writ large. But to perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable,
it's a different situation. That's completely, that was completely unpredictable.
Oh, I remember what my point was. Yeah, the idea that we had like any idea as to what Trump was going to do in terms of whatchamacallit, in terms of like what Trump was going to do with the deportation policy that he was going to have. No, we had no fucking idea, like, that it would be as bad as it was. I remembered my point now. There we go. Yeah, like, well, I mean, we did have, like, yeah, you're bringing up a good point, Boy Meets Mini, that we had a pretty clear idea. We didn't know that it would probably be this bad. Like, we knew that deportations were going to happen. Broadly speaking, I don't think, like, anyone would have, like, an idea as to, like, just how, like, overly aggressive. Yeah, like, in practicality, right? Like, in theory, we knew it would be bad, but, like, when it actually, like, all sort of, like, played out, we didn't think that it would be as brazen as it was, and as, like, just lazy and ridiculous is mostly what I'm getting at here. Like, we knew it would be bad. We didn't know how bad it could be.
But we kind of touched on it. And again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't, ultimately. But, Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out of...
Then why did you bring this up, Ethan? You're the one who brought it up. Like, brother, why'd you say this? Okay, dude.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages as a way of deterring Israel from entering. And that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government needs to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So
I wonder about that last part. But
which part?
The part
killing of innocent civilians? Yeah, I do wonder about that. I'll be honest as well.
No, I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic...
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
I think the Israelis, I mean,
yes.
Obviously not all Israelis, but I think that enough of Israelis to maintain this government believe that Palestinians in Gaza, that their lives have no value, that they are all future enemies, that they that they all represent a threat to Israel, and I think that's. I think that's a...
Yeah, Israelis are pretty fucking racist, guys.
Just so you know, there were massive demonstrations in Israel, tens of thousands of people in a country that's relatively small. So I think characterizing, like, the majority of the public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. But it's...
No, that's not true. That is not true. That's just blatantly inaccurate. It is true that there have been a lot of demonstrations in Israel as a result of this. But to say that, like, it's because they want they're doing it because they want the hostages back, it's not because they like they like the Palestinians. No, if you talk with, like, an average fucking Israeli about, like, what they think of Palestinians, they think of them all as, like, rabid dogs that need to be fucking put down. Let's be fucking honest here. They're not saying the things that they're saying because they are feeling altruistic about the Palestinians, because they feel bad about Palestinians being bombed. That's cap. That's cap. That is cap.
Yes, you can say what you want.
I'm basing this on conversations with Israeli reporters that there does not seem to be in Israel a majority, at the very least, of people who are concerned about the fate of the Palestinians in Gaza. Certainly they want hostages, and again, not all Israelis, but look, the
hashtag not all Israelis.
Analogous assessments of the United States at various times about things that reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting the government of a country that has maybe 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about to release the hostages.
Okay, to release the hostages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to release the hostages.
Ceasefire, Sam. That's what that means.
They were
500,000.
They were calling for a ceasefire, or they were calling for a release of the hostages.
Well, what's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but Israel has, and I know.
I'll deal with this. 500,000 Israel.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, and Sam is probably just going to say this right here, like, the state of Israel has to also agree to the ceasefire for there to be a ceasefire. Now, they did agree to a ceasefire under Biden. There was a ceasefire that was held in place for about a month, I believe. But eventually they just completely shirked and went back on that stuff. And they went back to fucking bombing the shit out of people anyways. So, like, I think it's pretty reasonable that a lot of people within, like, what? Palestine, Israel, broadly speaking, don't really have much trust for their fucking government. Let's be quite honest here. Palestinians probably do not have a lot of trust of the Israelis. Israelis probably don't have a lot of trust of, like, much of anyone. They're certainly okay with, like, bombing a bunch of fucking Palestinians. We know this, right? The sort of, like, Zionist, broader fucking project has been one of inherent dehumanization of Palestinians. That's not ridiculous to say. Let's be quite fucking honest here. The sort of, like, idea that, like, there's, like, it's all, like, being done of, like, altruism or whatever, is questionable at best. Let's be quite honest here.
Let's look this up and see how many times the Israeli government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam. That's 10%.
Israel just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response?
That's true.
From
Israel did break the latest ceasefire.
Held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten they've gotten much more.
Okay, then why are you even arguing about this, Ethan? Okay, dude.
A lot more radicalized since October 7th, and that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they are cynical and they don't care, like you said, and I think it's tragic.
Yes, well, that's what my contention was. I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians, though.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam, marched out on the street of a country of 5 million for a ceasefire.
This Pew research, 39% say Israel's military.
Yeah, this is just like
34% say not gone far enough.
Whatever.
Sure. Now, granted, that was in
it's just
May
pure
this past year, so maybe that's changed. I would hope.
Stupid.
But that's all the
that's horrible. Yeah, no, I know that the sentiment
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that.
I don't know what's left now.
Yeah, I agree. It's tragic what's happened because I agree with you that they become jaded and they've become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it sucks. I think it sucks is an understatement. I think it's tragic and like I don't know what. Truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that and like it's just
tragic
sometimes. But
it
true and real.
But in the meantime, in this country, and we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel. We should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC. And that's
well, incidentally, I agree with all those things too. I think that that's the most we can do as a country to try to stop the war, and it's something that we should be doing. And I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front. But certainly
we won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I gotta go because I'm supposed to have dinner for my child.
Well, I'll say this: this was way more combative than I expected. Ultimately, though, I don't think that what do we disagree on? I mean, I don't even know. Maybe I see too much good in the Israeli population. I mean, I don't know what's ultimately the disagreements here.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not. It's largely, in my mind, impossible to really fully assess. I mean, yes, there was a protest last year, 500,000 people who wanted the hostages back.
How effective was?
Well, they wanted the hostages back.
How effective has that been in like moving the needle on any of this? That's questionable at best.
It's not a magic wand. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, and they got a ceasefire, and then the Israeli government broke it, and they.
Well, so hold on. Our disagreement is that I'm too optimistic about the Israeli citizenry.
I'm not here to adjudicate what.
I'm just trying to summarize our conversation. That's all.
Well, I mean, you summarize for you. I'll summarize for me. I think it is what it is. And I think I don't remember this conversation we put into AI and have it summarize it, but
I'll do that for you, and I'll let you know what it says.
Right,
we'll leave it to the robots. Okay. Sam, I do appreciate you calling in. I do value your input on all this, and I appreciate the conversation. I think it's good to have conversations like this, like open and honest, even if they're combative. And I think ultimately on the larger points we agree, but we managed to find things to fight about anyway, and that's what two Jews do, isn't it, Sam?
That happens. That's my understanding. Appreciate it.
Right. Yeah, Ethan, I don't think he agrees with any of this. I think he's fine with like bombing the shit out of more fucking Palestinians. He doesn't give a fuck about this, right? Which is why he does like all this stupid, like lazy, implicit fucking defense of the IDF and shit like that. Like dumbasses like Yoav Gallant. But yeah, I think Ethan's being fucking full of shit here.
Take it easy.
Have a great time with your children at dinner there. Enjoy.
Thanks, I will.
Bye. That was way different than I thought it was going to be. Oh,
do we want to listen to a little bit of some of the stuff he says? I'm curious as to what he says.
Okay. That was interesting. I enjoyed that as a watcher.
Was I owned?
I don't think you were owned. I don't think anybody was owned. I think it was two people that are highly opinionated hashing it out. I think.
Yeah, I'll be on it's silly. The problem is he treats what Netanyahu is doing as an anomaly, not a feature of the Israeli state. And that is pretty much the overall problem. Okay, my summary of the debate, Sam Sedar was trying to point out constantly to Ethan that it's not about, this isn't an aberrance This is the goal of the Israeli state, period. It's been a stated goal of Zionists ever since you had fucking Herschel do his initial writings. You can, make the argument if it's, like, been misinterpreted in a particular way or whatever. That can be fucking quibbled about. But broadly speaking, we know what the sort of, like, intentions here are. It's fairly fucking obvious what Netanyahu does. He constantly gets in the fucking way of every fucking peace proposal. He'll break all of the fucking ceasefires and everything. He'll break all of them fucking constantly. Every single time. But, like, that's not really the fault of Netanyahu. He didn't really do anything heckin' arena wrong. It's just like, okay, man, like, then what's, like, the fucking problem here? If he's, like, the one who's, like, not doing anything, like, incorrect or wrong at this point. Like, it's silly. He like you said, Boy Meets Mini, he sees, like, Netanyahu as an anomaly, when in reality, it's not, like, people like Netanyahu were always going to exist within the state of Israel. He's not an anomaly. He is an inevitability. That's the problem. So, I think Sam Sedar did quite all right in his points. Ethan was quite dishonest at some points, especially because he broadly speaking, he doesn't understand the broader end goals and the objectives as to what Netanyahu wants to fucking achieve. Sam is the adult in the room. I think that's pretty safe to say. But let's see what else.
I personally like when people do that.
Yeah,
I don't get turned off by the combativeness.
Right.
Maybe that's the half Jewish part of me.
But the truthfully is, like, again, on the larger points, we agree. That's why I take cross with this issue of being like, he's a genocide supporter, he's a fucking baby killer, and all this insane. He goes, Sam, you never heard of hyperbole? Yeah, I've heard of hyperbole. It's fucking.
You're the king hyperbole.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is my downfall that I have too much faith or I have too much optimism in the Israeli citizenry? Maybe I guess that's where we differ. That seemed to be where we were differing the most. I don't know.
I think you're right to identify that as and I mean, Sam is older and he's in his 50s or something. And
Bro, you were trying to do, like, all the stupid hyperbole nonsense in Sam's face. Whatever. It's silly.
So maybe he's just more jaded,
Yeah, he definitely is more jaded. There's no question about that, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so.
But yeah, I enjoyed watching that.
I will say, as a Jewish person, the contentious point in the argument of the clip of Hasan, it kind of shocked me.
I was a little, to be honest, and as much as I love Sam, he was being very obtuse, in my opinion, when trying to talk about that clip to avoid criticizing Hasan, which is fine. I understand he doesn't want to get into that game, right? Of being on record, being like, oh yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't ultimately matter. You're talking with Sam at that point. He doesn't give a fuck about, like, whatever hyperbolic shit that fucking Hasan is saying. Who the fuck cares? Okay.
Hasan shouldn't have said that or whatever, right? But ultimately, obviously, I greatly disagree with him, and I think it's kind of.
Yeah, to say
it's funny how he talks about how dangerous it is for me to call out anti-Semitism or
yeah, I mean, I guess obtuse in the mind of Ethan, Boy Meets Mini, is him just not really giving a shit at all about, like, what Hasan is saying, and it's more, like, overall sort of, like, focusing on the fucking overall point of, like, this is, like, him doing the fucking whole conflation of Zionism with Judaism, as well as not recognizing that Netanyahu is an anomaly, not a feature. Like, him recognizing Netanyahu as an anomaly and not a feature of the Israeli state.
How ridiculous it is for me to weaponize it like that. It's like, when at the same time...
It's a weird thing, because you don't really want to, like... I understand the impulse to just want to have a conversation with Sam and keep it with, like, the here and now of, your beliefs and everything, but... the degree to which the harassment that you and Hila have experienced over the last couple of years, like, it is part of the story, and, like,
yeah,
I don't know, it's tricky because, like, I get the impulse to, like, not want to get into it, but, like, that is a component of all of this.
Well, and unfortunately, whatever Sam I'm peppered with before the debate I've seen is his co-host telling him that I'm obsessed with Hasan, that I'm having a mental health break, that I'm a genocidal maniac, all this kinds of stuff. So that's kind of without having any of the.
Oh, he's talking about I believe he's talking about Emma Vigeland, if I were to take a guess. I don't think that's a ridiculous hyperbolic statement there at all from, like, Emma Vigeland. Yeah, you have been having, like, a strange obsession. You keep talking about Hasan. You brought, like, literally in this debate, you constantly brought up Hasan, my dude. Like, okay, bro. But you don't have, like, a fixation with Hasan. Okay, Ethan. Sure, man.
The backstory, that's the flavor he's coming in with. But ultimately, I find... I don't want to speak ill of Sam, right? I appreciate him coming and having an honest conversation with me. I was also disappointed by his response to that specific line of questioning, Zach. I share that with you. And I think the way that he was hand-waving away anti-Semitism as, like, it doesn't matter that people are discriminating against Jewish people in America because of what's happening in Gaza. And it's like, well, first of all, two different issues, kind of. Whatever's happening in Gaza is one thing, and whatever rise into anti-Semitism we're seeing in America is a whole different fucking thing with its own set of problems. And believe it or not, they're both bad. To the same extent? Obviously not, right? Obviously one has an immediate, horrible effect in Gaza right now. And the threat of anti-Semitism...
I don't know why this, like, matters, I'll be honest. I don't even think, like... Did Sam even, like, bring this up or anything? Like, does it matter to him? I don't even know, dude. Like, whatever.
Is an amorphous, nebulous thing that's, like, hard to measure and hard to say. And Jews, our whole life in America, people call it the golden age of Judaism. Is this time, the past, 50, 60, 70 years in America for Jewish people. We it's hard to tell, right? You go, what is anti-Semitism, what isn't? And you know, when you're allies with people that, in my opinion, are spreading dangerous ideas, like Hasan is. I think Sam, who grew up in a, you know, I think he sees too much good in Hasan, and I see too much good in the Israeli population. And hey, who's to say who's right? I'm right.
Yeah, like.
No. No, you should not be, like, that's the fucking problem, though, Ethan. That's the fucking problem. You are completely willing to just hand wave away everything that the fucking, Israeli state does and fucking says, because you just don't want to, like, fucking criticize the state. Like, you don't want to criticize the state. I'm not going to necessarily say he, like, agrees with what's going on there, but, like, you know. Yeah, the main arbiter of anti-Semitism is, it's Ethan. We all know this, right? Like, this is silly.
In response to what Zach was saying, like when I first saw that clip, I didn't see it that way, but you know, I'm not Jewish, so I found it interesting that you guys are having this conversation to give both perspectives. One thing I kind of wish is that you guys both could have defined what Zionism is, like what you, because I feel like that's a big point in all this.
I agree, and it's such a stupid word because it has such a broad meaning. And like when Hasan says Zionist tendencies, that's why I think it's important to ask Sam, who I think is avoiding the question, frankly, because he knows that it looks bad. He doesn't want to answer. So he responds by saying like, "Oh, you think this matters? Let's not talk about the specifics of what Zionist tendency is," because clearly Hasan's not anti-Semitic. Obviously, he doesn't have the context. And by the way, I'm still willing to give Hasan the benefit of the doubt that he's not anti-Semitic, right? But once again, as I've said, I'm willing to. But what I've said previously is that he's very comfortable fostering a community that is blatantly hateful and anti-Semitic. He's comfortable, you know, expressing these ideas irresponsibly the way he communicates, which is what that clip displays, I think. So while I don't think he's anti-Semitic, I think he's responsible for perpetuating a lot of it. And I think Sam's refusal to answer questions like what does Zionist tendency means was, you know, a way of him avoiding answering a difficult question that would impugn Hasan. Because frankly, there's really nothing positive to say about what he did.
Well, because like. That's really fucking stupid because you can that is a question that can be answered in like 70 fucking different ways, Ethan. That's why he's not answering the question. It's a question, it's incredibly fucking subjective to whichever Jewish person that you're speaking to at the time. That's why he wasn't answering the question. Not to protect Hasan. I don't think like he really gives much of a shit. Like, yeah, that was mostly intended as also another gotcha question. He, like, Sam Sedar knew about that. You are correct when you're saying, when you say that, Boy Meets Mini, that Sam knew that was a gotcha question. He's not answering it because it's just like, who the fuck cares? Like, you're talking with me now. Like, I don't care about, like, what Hasan has to say or fucking think about this in particular. You're speaking with me. So, just dishonesty there by Ethan.
And so Sam took I guess if you want to talk about debate, and Sam's a great debater, right? Everybody knows that. So he's a great conversationalist. He doesn't really get the best of. Nobody really gets the best of him in conversation. I mean, the only way he could really take that on was to be like, it doesn't matter, you know, in the totality of things. So that's the road he took, and I was disappointed by that as well. But at the end of the day, I knew it was unlikely that he was going to say a bad thing about Hasan. I was specifically trying not to even go there. In fact, when I showed him that first video of me talking about my...
What do you mean you weren't trying to go there? You're trying to go there the whole time? Okay, bro. Nice meme.
Views. I was kind of surprised that he actually had found something to criticize in it. I had said,
what was it? I don't remember.
Let me rewatch that clip because I was quite surprised. Like from the beginning, this conversation did not go how I thought it would at all, and it started with this clip here. Let me see. You know they're liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel. Okay, listen. This isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs. Okay, they're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal. Okay, he's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis.
He
was saying that there's this talking point that I've seen percolating on the left, which is that like to put it kind of to summarize it crassly, that like Israelis are evil. Basically, I mean, to put it crassly, right? Like that's kind of what he's saying is that like the majority of Israelis just want civilians to die. I mean, that's kind of what he said, and he didn't even deny it. I think that's insane. I think that's insane, and especially in the context of this clip being.
We can find the clips, right? Right. Israelis talking about Palestine. We can find them. There's the, there's like that Abby Martin movie, for example. Israel's message, don't feed the Palestinians. There was what's that name of that movie that just came out recently? It's called Settlers, right? What is it? Settlers movie from, what is it? Or is it, no, it's not a movie, be a documentary. No, I don't want Settlers domain. God damn it. Settlers movie. There's a Vice doc on Israelism. Okay, why don't we look at that instead? Vice Israelism. listen to this fucking music. Let's see, what do they think of Israel? What do the Israelis here think of?
Found in the depths of
what?
my Yishans to Simone's. I was 7. Up in LA. Family and like a core part of being a Jew. So you did prayers and you did Israel.
We love Israel, don't we, folks? Yeah, could you give me the Abby Martin clip as well? Because, like, that's, like, pretty much, like, the main one I thought of immediately. There's other documentaries. There was a documentary that I think, other streamers were watching as well, for example, talking about, like, hey, like, quite literally, like, there was, like, a not like a party. There was, like, a party by a different sort of like, a bunch of different, like, West Bank settlers who went in with, like, fucking binoculars and shit to look at Gaza fucking being bombed, right? They were looking at Gaza fucking being bombed right then and there, so, you know. Because that's like what I'm looking for. Like, what do Israelis fucking think?
We're here in Zion Square in Jerusalem, which the government has actually declared to rename Tolerant Square. And we're just going to ask everyday Israelis what they think about the situation. You're American. Where are you from and why did you come here?
I'm from New York, and...
Insert meme here about, like, you know, there being New York. It's funny.
I came here with my family when I was younger to make Aliyah, because it was always my parents' dream to come to Israel, because we're religious.
So, are you American?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Why? When did you move here and why?
I moved here 11 years ago. My family moved here because this is the country of the Jewish people and the future of the Jewish people, and we want to be here.
How old are you guys?
18. We're 18 years old. Now we're here in Israel taking a leadership course, and we're going to the army for a few months to see how life's here. And then we hope to bring back some of this knowledge to our youth movements.
So you're like an internship with the army?
It's about 2 months, and they show you everything about the army.
Israel is a great place. It's a nice place. You should come and visit. I love Israel, and I feel safe here.
All the misconceptions are not true. Like, there's not people with knives every day, and there's not, I don't know, people exploding.
Palestinians?
Yeah. No, but pretty much the life here is really good.
For people living here, it's just normal to see people in the army walking around with guns, and you feel completely safe and protected.
I feel like we know who the threat is, and it's not coming from anyone random, as opposed to in the rest of the world that could be anyone.
Hell yeah, second name, brother.
Here we know who our enemy is, and we know that they are out to get us.
Who is the enemy?
Who's the enemy? That's a very good question. I don't think it's specifically any nation. I think it's the people that are so interested in being politically correct that they won't actually go after the people that are trying to cover things up.
I think.
What the fuck does that even mean? Like, okay, guys, it's all about political. It's the politically correct guys. Okay.
That the Islam is it's a very bad disease, not just for Israel.
Islam is a bad disease,
all
guys.
around the world. We can see it. They think they all have to be Islam. If you're not Islam, they will kill you.
Someone should tell that guy about Christianity. You know? Oh, because they thought the exact same way.
A lot of Americans don't really understand what Israel's like. We hear a lot of things in the news. A lot of people are sympathizing with the Palestinian plight. Can you talk about what it's like to kind of live in this situation?
Yeah, like it's one of the 3 Abrahamic religions.
First of all, it's very hard. I'm in an organization. It's called Lahava. It's against the Jews shouldn't marry Arabs.
Did you say the organization did what again?
Jews shouldn't marry Arabs. All right.
The organization is the thing of it is that Jews shouldn't marry Arabs.
Shouldn't marry Arabs. Why do you feel strongly about that?
Because Jews is a special nation that God gave it to the Jews, and we don't want Jews to get mixed up together with a different nation.
I think.
Hey Ethan, what do you think of a kid who says like, I think race mixing is kind of bad, guys?
Israelis have to take over, and they have to kick them away. It will be much better.
Kick them away. Oh, 100% Boy Meets Mini. Yeah, those fucking youth movement organizations. There's like sexual assault of women constantly in them, right? Same thing with like, you know, a certain funny little mustachioed man. So.
Not to kill them, just to go back to Arab countries.
You can't deal with these people. There's no need to try. There's no need to talk to them. What we can do is when they do enough harm, we retaliate. That's war, and that's the situation that any Jew who lives in Israel has to deal with.
Yeah, harm. I wonder what's meant here.
אוקיי, בסדר בעברית? פשוט מאוד, צריך להיכנס לשטחים. וכל מחבל שעושה פיגוע צריך להרוג אותו, צריך להרוג את המחבלים, ואז הם יפחדו ולא יעשו לנו בעיות, והכל יהיה בסדר. הם יהיו בכפרים שלהם, אנחנו נחיה פה, לא צריך להיות ביחד, והכל בסדר.
By the way, same thing that white ethnostaters all the fucking time say, like, dude, we just have to, you know... Oh, I know it gets more unhinged, but hey, Ethan, this is what a lot of average Israelis think, by the way, buddy, of Arabs, which obviously extends to the Palestinians, but, you know, that's cool.
I think also that every Arab that's doing a terrorism attack, we have to kill him, and not because he's an Arab, because he's a terrorist. I think you should also kick.
That's true, yeah. Abby Martin, listen. I think Abby Martin is like a stupid, annoying, like, dumb fuck America bad type person. She follows in that fucking sort of stupid political philosophy. But as far as I know, she didn't like select people. She just randomly went around in during the Empire Files and just randomly picked Israeli civilians to talk with.
Out the family, because it all begins with chinuch. How you say it?
Education.
Whatever they teach the kids,
Take out the
it's
families.
I'm seems that we need to
Kick out the Arabs. Ethnic cleansing, Ethan? Ethan?
אני לא יודעת לתרגם. I don't know how to translate really well.
I think we should give them a country. If you're doing any problem, you just go in there to give them a country.
Yeah, you know, give them again, this is the exact same shit that fucking ethno-staters justify all the time. Well, we can just send like back all the blacks to their country. Why don't we just put them in their own country, right? And just we have America for the whites, Africa is for the blacks. So, well, yeah, you know, why can't we do that? This is the exact same fucking logic.
And then it's going to be a war between countries, you know? If they're going to throw rockets, we're going to throw one big one and done.
I don't think there's any answer to it. There's only one way, like, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it. Like,
this guy is just openly admitting to just wanting to carpet bomb Palestinians, so that's cool.
Or try to stop them a different way. It never worked.
You mean all Arabs are Gaza or...
Buddy, the only reason, by the way, for this fucking dumbass over here, the reason why you're in the situation that you're even in right now is because you've just been carpet bombing them. So,
I believe that they, like, I hope to believe they're not, but I do think they are, because I don't trust them. You can't trust them, and that's the only way I believe.
Can't trust them.
The only way is just to stop it completely.
I think that we're miserable. The Arabs make a פיגועים and we need to kill the Arabs.
Gleeful about just killing the Arabs.
Okay.
We'll talk about this.
All right, cool. Well,
there is also Jewish civilians that hate Arabs. Yeah, I'm not saying, but
yeah,
we have
good
also
dude. It's
people
funny.
that like
Just
the
kill
Arabs
people.
and everything, like Smolanim.
I think another thing that the Jews should have rights to hate them. I think we have the right to hate them. I don't see a reason why not. I won't trust any of them.
Yeah, the right to hate them. Sure, man. Someone should tell that to a bunch of like Arab Jews. I wonder what they think of Arab Jews. Yeah, Ethan. Yeah, hey, the you know, Jews just don't randomly just like, you know, is it fucking every single Israeli civilian? You know, probably not, but There's a lot of them that seem to have just a sheer fucking hatred.
War crime this, can't eat the drywall that, microwaving mice is wrong, they say.
He's, yeah, Sundowner's for real for that one. So, you know, nice meme.
2 days after October 7th, I think it was, the sentiment was a lot different before and after and during and now. The sentiment in Israel's changed a lot. So when I said that, I think it was more accurate. I think it's still accurate, but obviously there is a huge problem in Israel of people being, you know, complicit and comfortable.
When was the Empire Files released? About 7 years ago. Live video was released. When was the Empire Files released? About 8 years ago by Abby Martin. I'm curious to say, this was about a year ago. That sounds like ethnic cleansing. CNN questions lead figure in Israeli settler movement.
High in the hills of the...
Oh, and that's that one fucking dumbass bitch, right? Who's like a real fucking piece of shit.
Flag flies and guard this.
Talk to us. They said they've been here for about 9.
Control. The Beit Hagla settlement is illegal. But last February, the Israeli government officially recognized it along with 8 others, a move the U.S. strongly opposed. We're here because God promised us this land, Azrael Picard tells us. Now these settlers have set their sights on a new prize, one that seemed utterly impossible before October 7th. Returning to Gaza, they cheer. That is the goal of Zionist settler organization Nahala, one of more than a dozen groups now advocating for the reestablishment of Israeli settlements in Gaza.
Settlements in Gaza again. Let's go.
Gaza will become the next Riviera.
2006 all over again.
Daniela Weiss is the godmother of the movement. She's already started recruiting.
There we go. Yeah, Daniela Weiss. She is fucking insane.
From the 700,000-strong settler community of Israel. We're just arriving now at a settlement in the occupied West Bank, and we're heading to a talk that Daniela Weiss is giving to a group of people who are potentially interested in resettling Gaza. We are for the land of Israel and Ben Gvir, she says. About 20 people gather in the living room of a family home. Weiss knows that for many in this community, there is deep nostalgia for Gush Katif, a block of 21 Israeli settlements that were forcibly evacuated by the IDF in 2005 when Israel left the Gaza Strip.
Yep.
This is the vision of Gaza, she says. You see all the nucleus groups. A map has already been drawn up, 6 groups laying claim to different parts of the enclave. So they've just been handing out these little booklets that say, people of Israel, return home, and then underneath, a call to return to the settlements of Gaza. One of the organizers tells the group they have a representative...
Hey, Ethan, this is about a year ago that this interview was done by CNN. Not by Hasan or anything. Not by any other fucking lefty. This is CNN. Ooh, and I think this is the thing I also saw from yesterday, right? Israeli settlers show Louis Theroux their full colors. I believe this was, you know, something that was also trending on Twitter not that long ago. Same fucking woman, by the way.
Flying to Florida to raise money. Nakhala gets support from a number of groups in the U.S., including AFSI, Americans for a Safe Israel, which co-sponsored a recent webinar on the return to Gush Katif, even as the Biden administration has cracked down on settlements in the West Bank.
There is a very strong support from very prominent, from very, I would say, wealthy people, wealthy Jews
in the U.S. Can you name any names?
No, I cannot. No.
I wonder why.
At her home in Kedumim settlement, Weiss tells us she's already enrolled 500 families.
I even have on my cell phone names of people who say, enlist me, enroll me, I want to join. I want to join the groups that are going to settle Gaza.
Guys, I want to do I want to do the ethnic cleansing. I want to do the ethnic cleansing.
To ask you because we're sitting here talking and we're listening to
I'm listening. I hope you are listening to
Which is a reminder, I think, of the people who live here, but also the people who live in Gaza. What happens to them in this vision of this new settlement with Jewish settlers even in Gaza City?
What I think about Gaza, the Arabs of Gaza lost the right to be in Gaza on the 7th of October. Yes, I do hear the mosque, I do hear the prayer. Things were different until the 7th of October. No Arab, I'm speaking about more than 2 million Arabs. They will not stay there. We, Jews, will be in Gaza.
That sounds like...
Hey, Ethan, what do you think of this? She's recruiting families to do ethnic cleansing, Ethan.
Ethnic cleansing, okay.
The Arabs want to annihilate the state of Israel. So you can call them monsters. You can call them cleansing of Jews. We are not doing to them. They are doing to us. I couldn't make it clear.
Yeah, that's just, you know, she's just saying it. But yeah, like, totally. You know, we're the victims here, guys. Like, you know, every fucking dipshit fucking fascist always does. Every single time. Every fucking fascist just fucking says stuff like this. All the time. Saying like, guys, we're not... Us? Us? No, we're not the ones who are responsible. It's them. It's always them. It's them. Them.
When I said that myself, as a person who is preoccupied with settling the land, until the 7th of October, I didn't have plans of returning to Gaza. It's clear. I'm not interested in cleansing.
What is clear is that Weiss's
Yeah,
views,
sure.
traditionally seen as extreme in Israel, have become more popular since October 7th. In late January, jubilant crowds packed an auditorium in Jerusalem for the Victory of Israel conference, calling for the resettlement of Gaza. A poll that month from the Jewish People Policy Institute found that 26% of Israelis advocate the reconstruction of the Gush Katif settlements after the war is over. Among supporters of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing coalition government, that number jumps to 51%. Several ministers were present at the conference, including far-right heritage minister Amichai Eliyahu. In a rare interview with Western media, he tells us his political decisions are guided by the Torah. Is there anything about Gush Katif in here?
Yes.
And that settlements in Gaza are needed to prevent another October 7th.
The language of the land says that wherever there's a Jewish settlement, there will be more security. Doesn't mean there will be absolute security, but there will be more security.
Why would you advocate for something
Yeah, I have a feeling that this dude's probably lying.
that many would say is illegal, is immoral, is not supported by the majority of Israelis, and is also very harmful to Israel in terms of its international standing?
Why do you think it's immoral to take land from someone who wants to kill me? Why is it immoral to take my land, which my ancestors live there, which I've even
You're the one who started kicking them out from the beginning. You're the one who started taking their fucking land, and you're just mad they're fighting back. Simply put.
given up to someone who slaughters, rapes, and murders me? What is more immoral than that?
Netanyahu has called resettling Gaza, quote, an unrealistic goal. Most Israelis agree. But that hasn't stopped scores of IDF soldiers fighting there from posting videos, calling for a return to Gush Katif. For many supporters of the settler movement, what was once a distant fantasy.
Hey, Ethan, what do you think of these people, huh? Seem like a lot of people want to settle in Gaza.
With what the military is doing.
Right, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I don't want to represent myself as an expert on any of this at all. So,
expert opinion, Dan.
No, it's definitely not.
Good
Just from what I
to
recall
me,
reading, is that prior to
Ethan.
October 7th, support for giving the Palestinians a state in Israel was at basically an all-time high, and that has cratered since October 7th, which is a great. I mean, one of the great tragedies of this whole situation and kind of dark irony of it is it now feels like we are further than ever from some sort of peaceful solution to all this. So.
Oh, and then the thing that we didn't discuss is that most of the peaceniks.
Let me real-time fact check myself on that because I mean that's a big claim.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm right, but I seem to remember seeing polls that generally over the course of the last 10 years or so, support for.
I'm speaking like not just from stats, which I have looked up and seen polls and stuff, but like empirically, I lived in Tel Aviv for 5 years and know what the people are like there, right? And obviously it's a progressive city.
That's likely one of the more progressive pockets.
It is.
In the
It's like Los Angeles or New York is.
Right.
It's a progressive city, right? So obviously they'll be more inclined.
If I recall correctly, where is Zion Square? Where is it? It's in Jerusalem. Okay, so not in Tel Aviv. We all know the settlers operate mostly out of the West Bank. What is the sentiments of the people within what are the sentiments of the people within Tel Aviv? I'm curious. That's where most of the protests were, right? We know most of the protests were there. And I don't think they're doing it because they're progressive.
To want peace. But,
No, they were more so protesting for the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu was doing a poor job at getting the hostages back. There's a difference.
Ultimately, what happened on October 7th that we didn't talk about is that a ton of the peace activists, like most of them, lived on the southern border specifically so they could help people in Gaza. They would drive people across the border to the hospital. They would help people get to and from work. They were advocating, they were doing what they could as individuals to help facilitate peace. And many of them, you hear their stories time and time again, were just murdered, slaughtered by Hamas. And I think that's part of what really jaded the Israeli public too. Is like, look what happens when you want to support peace. Obviously that's not, I don't think, the right conclusion, but that was their conclusion. It's like all the people that wanted peace were murdered by Hamas.
So like I have friends or family even that will say that they don't believe there's an innocent Israeli, and I think obviously stuff like that is super dangerous, and I'll never agree with that. But in terms of the Pew research is often what's referenced, and again Sam brought that up, that there was only 19% of people in May in Israel from the poll who thought that it went too far, and
I gotta see that poll.
Yeah,
that was from May.
Yeah, it was from May 2024. This is often referenced.
It's a little old, but I don't know if that's changed. Let's see.
Well, it's May tomorrow, so it's basically a year old, right?
Yeah.
I think I totally agree that the public is way too comfortable and complicit in all this. I think the question of do they want to end the war? I think this is. I mean, yeah, it's disturbing. You know what I mean? But let me see what this says. Israelis are
been about right. Don't know. Gone too far. Not gone far enough. Well, there's all the crazy schizo Netanyahu supporters.
Divided over the country's military response. Percent who say Israel's military response against Hamas in Gaza has gone too far. Been about right. Not gone far enough, which is crazy, right? That's crazy. These are the radicals for sure. I think people who are like, yeah, it's been about right. It's more like, again, I'm maybe people saying being too optimistic. I see that as like we've done enough, and like we've done everything we can do.
Yeah, but
yeah, that's pretty fucking optimistic. Like what all the 39% of people all think, Ethan. That's a little silly.
At that point in May, like they've already done so much.
I'm saying the people are saying, yeah, right. Like ideally, looking at it objectively, you would say it's gone too far. But to be charitable, I think a lot of people who are saying it's been about right are trying to say that the war should end. We've done the right amount of it, and let's just end the war. I mean, not gone enough, far enough. 34% is fucking bananas, obviously. Like percentage who will say Israel will blank in achieving its goals in the war. Definitely fail, probably succeed, definitely succeed. 40%. So I mean, people in Israel have faith that they'll succeed. I don't even know.
Same one from back in May.
This is from March 3rd to April 4th, 24.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know where the war was or what it was happening back then. I think that may have been during the time of like the hot war,
Yeah,
which I think tensions were even more peaked at that time. I don't know. Yeah, I mean it's disturbing. I don't deny that. But I also despise the way that Sam talks about the I don't see it being productive being like Israelis are evil. I don't see the point of saying that. Like and it's like, well, what do you want to do about it? You say the vast
did Sam Sedar even say that? Did he say that? Yeah, I don't think he ever said that. That's like shit that Hasan has said, but whatever. No point in being honest.
The majority of Israelis want civilians to die, and it's like, why do they think that? It's just like, well, I don't know, but they're evil. They just don't care. They're just callous. I mean, look, human beings are human beings everywhere.
I mean, a bunch of them do think that.
Dehumanizing Israelis, they just don't want to do it because, right, like what's happening in Gaza is awful, and they think that it's insignificant in comparison. And I understand where they're coming from, of course, but I believe that both are important. And obviously, again, the totality of what's happening in Gaza is not in dispute, about which is like more. But I do think that it's important, and I care about Israel, and I care about Israelis. That's it. And so I choose to see the good and to see the optimistic, and like obviously I have no effect over what the public thinks about the war. I'm not fucking living there. When I was living there, I voted against Netanyahu. And by the way, Netanyahu lost the popular vote. He only won because he made a coalition with some psychopath like ultranationalists. But the left party, when I voted, won the popular vote because of the parliamentary system, where you make coalitions to get over 50%. They were unable to secure the victory.
I think Netanyahu may be the devil. Like honestly, even his voice, I think he may be the fucking devil. And he's just passing out beepers to everyone. He gave the gold beeper to Trump.
Dude, that's so fucked.
He gave one to a senator.
I think that's so
or congressman. I forget who it was. He's like,
it was John Fetterman.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, that was dope when you guys did that. I have a family friend whose son had a beeper go through his stomach. Like, and it's his fucking crazy. The president's like taking a picture with the fucking beeper. I don't think
just like lionizing people dying is just fucking bad in terrible in general. Him handing out those beepers was like nauseating. Like, what are you doing, dude? It's crazy. I mean, that's
he's trying to make a point.
Yeah, he is. You're right. He is. But ultimately, I think that's ultimately where we
love the beepers, folks.
I'm more optimistic about the Jewish or the Israeli public. And
didn't Netanyahu give like a gold beeper to Trump or some shit, if I recall correctly?
This whole equation, like I'm the one that's supporting this happening. It's just I've never said anything that showcases that. I've been consistent.
Demon.
Hasan is pathetically typing in our chat again. I can talk now or Friday. I don't care. Up to you. Please don't try to bring a band. Bro, don't worry. I'm not doing that. You're afraid I'm gonna bring on Destiny? That's stupid. I'm not gonna do that. Stop. I promise you, Hasan, I will not bring on Destiny. In fact, the people here will not allow me to bring on Destiny.
No.
I'm interested, Hasan, in being honest. I'm going to take back what I said about you pathetically in the chat, okay? I'm going to be gracious.
She was bravely typing in our chat.
You're bravely typing in our chat. I'm not interested in trickery. As you can see at my conversation with Sam, I want to have an honest conversation with you, and that's what I plan to do on Friday. So
now it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm not doing it.
By the way, and this is why I prefaced what I was saying was I'm not an expert. Finding polling, I was wrong saying that support for a two-state solution was at a high. Looks like it kind of plateaued around 55% throughout the 2010s, but it was at a high in 2010 of 71% of Israelis supported a two-state solution. It looks like that number is now in the 20s.
2010, that's interesting. That's about 15 years when I was living there.
Is it? Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't remember when you moved there?
Not really. That was 15 years ago, so I would have been. Yeah, I would have been living there around then.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the vibes were at when I was there,
Well, it's unfortunate that it's dropped from.
So maybe I'm wrong because I haven't lived there, obviously, since then. But I definitely acknowledge what's happening amongst the Israeli public isn't good, and that, you know what I mean? That's what it is. You can say Destiny, Hasan. It's okay. You won't light on fire.
I just tuned into a stream. You're saying because if Destiny or someone was on, he could get banned on Twitch.
Don't worry, bro. It's not happening.
I will hit the button.
I promise. There's no trickery.
It's just going to be a one-on-one call.
Look, there's no trickery. I showed up here with Sam. I expressed myself honestly, as you saw. We got combative at times. And listen, everybody said Sam was going to own me, so I think you all need to applaud my bravery for getting combative with Sam Sedar.
I will never applaud your bravery.
Why won't you applaud me for that? You don't want to do that? You don't do applause? You're applauding at the beginning of the show.
Oh,
thank you. Okay, all right. Now you're hedging.
Please clap.
Dan's like, I never liked that guy.
Please clap.
Leftovers reunion.
I mean, title Friday. That actually is kind of funny.
I saw people saying we should run the intro. I don't think it's. I'll think about it.
I hadn't thought about
I don't know if that's the right tone or what.
That's a great theme song. I wrote that.
Yeah, shout out to the artist.
Yeah, it was a great one. But I promise you, Hasan, I'm not tricking you. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I'm not trying to get you banned on Twitch. No fucking stupid. You know what I mean? It's just about talking to each other. A long overdue conversation.
It's all content farming for this motherfucker, pretty much.
Bravely type in our chat.
There's like really nothing else here.
I look forward to chatting with you on Friday. With peace and love, of course.
That'll be interesting.
It's a shame. I feel like we ended up talking about material stuff.
This Friday.
Maybe not, though. Maybe that is the core of what's
no,
the big disagreement.
It's immaterial. Again, it's an awkward thing because it's like you're planning on having this conversation with Hasan. Your issues with Hasan, you should direct to Hasan, not to Sam.
Well, the problem is, which I didn't show Sam, and because Sam didn't care, and rightfully so. Why should he? But like, this whole talk to Sam Sedar thing is very much related to Hasan.
Here, in the sense that he had been pushing it for it. So
well, here's just like a little clip of him talking.
I urge him to talk to at least like Sam Sedar or something. Maybe he can get a different perspective from someone else. Talk. to Sam Sedar. I urge Ethan to talk to Sam Sedar about this. The reason why I wanted Sam to talk to Ethan as well, this is Jewish people's business. To a certain degree, I have not talked to Sam at all.
It's Jewish people's business, Jack. I don't think Sam felt very comfortable with the idea of him being the chosen Jew either, but he didn't really come out to it.
Yeah, I don't think
he is the
wanted that man.
Ethan, you're doing the fucking thing again. Literally in your fucking goddamn chat with Hasan, and this was pointed out by iDubbbz in his fucking content cop. Quite literally, like, when it's most convenient for you, you will be the main arbiter of all Jewish people. You're going to be the main guy who represents Jews. But, like, when Hasan is just like, okay, I think that you can talk with someone else who has the perspective of anti-Zionist fucking Jews, all of a sudden you started throwing a fucking hissy fit about it. You're talking about, like, why are you bringing up my Jewishness in this conversation, bro? And it's just like, all right, man. Whatever. You just want to be fucking stupid and dishonest.
There's a reason his last name's Sedar, because we never pass over Sam Sedar. The Sedar, of course, the Seder is the ceremony performed by Jews on Passover. So I'll take Miller.
We should have had some parsley and salt water today. We should have dipped it.
I'll dip it for those bitter tears, man. I'm still wiping them away. Anyway.
Beyond the fact that I was like, I think it'd be cool if you could talk to Ethan.
I think you can have a conversation with Sam Sedar. I mean,
but I really, really seriously hope you talk to Sam Sedar, that he should talk to Sam Sedar. I think you respect Sam Sedar. You should probably have a conversation with him about this. Maybe this time I'll bring Sam Sedar, and you'll be the one saying, oh my God, Sam Sedar, what a fucking nightmare, because, you've been running away from him. Yeah, I wonder why Ethan Klein won't fucking talk to Sam Sedar, just like he was.
Yeah, this whole thing of like, oh, you're scared, you're running, and all this type of stuff. And then when I'm finally like, okay, I'll talk to Sam Sedar.
I mean, initially, yeah, you were not refusing to talk with Sam Sedar. And this is in response, again, to when the content nuke dropped and fucking Hasan, you were just like, debate me, Hasan, talk with me, Hasan, talk with me about, like, Israel, Palestine, and shit like that. And fucking Hasan was saying, like, no, I don't want to, because it's just silly and stupid.
Hasan starts hedging and being like, let's see. He starts being like, oh, he's just gonna lie to him about what he believes. I have the clip. Where is that motherfucker? Oh! Yeah, he says...
is he just gonna talk about Hasan for the rest of the time? Is that what's going on here? There's more Hasan... And then he goes to do his regular... Okay, because I don't care about any of this anymore, okay? I don't give a shit about Hasan, okay? Because I don't give a shit about this in general anymore, alright? Yeah, alright. My overall sort of conclusion on this debate. Ethan is, of course, being, yet again, what I criticized him initially for in his content nuke. He does the lazy Zionist fucking shit all the fucking time, where he will give... Yeah, he has not really changed much at all. Broadly speaking, Ethan will just be like, oh, okay, we're gonna have to give such utter fucking scrutiny to all of the sort of Palestinian advocates, to Hamas and stuff like that, which is fine. Like, obviously, you should fucking shit on Hamas. That's not my contention. The problem is that you have a significantly fucking higher standard for this fucking one dumb fuck militant group in comparison to that of fucking Netanyahu, where you seem to have a much lower fucking standard. Thinking of him as an anomaly instead of just overall a broader representation for as to what the goals of the broader sort of Israeli state are. That is the problem that a lot of people have with you, and why they are calling you a fucking Zionist, which I don't think is a ridiculous distinction for people to have. I think, like, broadly speaking, you are engaging in a lot of the exact same fucking behaviors, and there's a reason why people are fucking saying, like, you're just like some fucking DGG plant sesh shill nowadays. Because, again, just like has been talked before in the content cop, they're, like, with Icarus Bath, basically pushing you in order to crash out further and further, so DGG can farm content from you. We know this. We know this, right? Like, DGG is doing this for their own fucking, like, stupid, idiotic fucking purposes and shit like that. Yeah, like you're saying, Boy Meets Minnie, if he quacks like a duck, if he walks like a duck, if he quacks like a duck, must be a fucking duck. And sometimes it is just as simple as, dude, you must be a fucking duck, because you keep quacking like one. So at some point, I'm just going to have to call you what you are, and that's a fucking duck.